All right. Hello, hello. We're getting there, very close to where you guys can start to build projects. I think 2 more weeks. Postgres and Next.js, and then we're good to go. Postgres Prisma Next.js. And बाकी सब auxiliary topics. Then you're good to go. Alrighty. Change audio input. Let's see. I think it's the Rode mic. Hello, hello, hello. Let me know if not, Akash. And second brain offline video. कुछ तो है इसमें. The bottom part is repeated twice. Yeah, there's something extra. Yeah, someone told me. We'll re-upload it or just skip through it. Um, all right, what's up? What's up? DevOps, I've created the slides for the first two sections. First two sections are fairly simple. First one is a bunch of bash, second one is VMs. So slides are done. Hopefully next week, you guys get the offline videos for the first two things, which are actually, the only things you'll be able to follow through abhi ke liye. All the things that we have done until now, uska corresponding DevOps part, hopefully should happen by this week. PubSub and Redis, important, but not important for initial set of projects. Like we will reach there, but like after Next.js, let's just build a few projects. PubSub, Redis, all other auxiliary, no, not auxiliary, they're important, but like we'll get there. All right. Second bin offline video code. It is there. It's just in a different repository. Backend and frontend are in different repositories. Just go there, you'll find a frontend repository and a backend repository. तो वो बस अलग अलग repos में है. That is it. What else? Let's see if there's any other thing. Exams going on in college. Yeah, I would assume. Yeah, everyone, like a lot of Super 30 people also went back to colleges for the next 20 days or so. So I know it's going to be a little, I don't know, you guys are going to be a little inactive. But that's fine. You can always catch up with recordings. Cool, cool, cool. थोड़ी पढ़ाई करो यार. Let's do a poll. I want to try this poll. Let's just do it right now. And also let's do webinar.gg session at the end. Webinar.gg is sort of ready now. So let's see if it can handle a scale of, let's say there are 500 people right now. So it would be nice if you can stick around till the end. We'll do a webinar.gg session, which is, a product that we're trying. All right, poll time. If, like, barring the skills, you might be good, you might be bad. I don't know. I mean, a lot of people are still figuring it out. A lot of people are slow. A lot of people are, catching up. Still, there are 500 people here, which is great. Okay, at least you 500 are getting there. If given a chance today to accept an offer, given, let's say you have the skills, what would be the minimum you accept? मतलब इसमें ये नहीं कि we will take 100 के only हरकीरत, मैं तो उससे नीचे लूंगा ही नहीं. Oh, 1 second. I think you meant audio here, which was smart. Thank you, Akash. All right, I was saying minimum, what would you accept? Let's start with 7 LPA. And select 7 LPA. If you're like 7 LPA मिलेगा तो मैं ले लूंगा. 10 LPA, 12 LPA, 18 LPA. This is the cache component. And then maybe 25 LPA plus. I would assume इससे ऊपर वाले अगर हैं भी तो you're figuring things out on your own. Yeah, you already have a good job or whatever. ठीक है, they just select 25 LPA plus there. If you get a job, मतलब आज अगर मिल जाए कितने की भी, will be like fine. And please think twice before answering. ये नहीं कि हाँ, we'll तो select 25 मिल नहीं रही है अभी. I'm just asking कि हाँ realistically हर कितने इतने की मिलेगी तो मैं ले लूंगा. So which offer would you accept today if you get one? All right, I love it. This is pretty good, pretty good. So let it roll in. Few more answers, and here we go. All right. So there is 40% at 7 LPA, another 20% at 10 LPA. So 60% is happy with 10 LPA and 80% at 12 LPA. 20% उसके ऊपर है. So I think this is great. This is great expectations generally. I can tell you, let me just talk for 2 more minutes and then we'll start. We have HRs now, and they keep sharing things with me. They've worked in universities, they've worked with other edtechs. तो दे टेल के फ्रेशर्स में यूजुअली 7 से ऊपर सोचना बहुत मुश्किल है. इफ यू वांट टू गेट हायर्ड लाइक दिस होता है मतलब देयर इज वेरी हाई डिमांड एंड take an interview. What happened with Super 30 people is everyone is like remote and 25. Almost everyone was like remote भी चाहिए and 15 plus तो सबका ही था कि उससे नीचे तो हम लेंगे नहीं. So the HRs have started to ignore a lot of them, and because most of them are freshers only or either in college or graduated but not yet gotten a job. So the HR's का first day feedback, because the first set of interviews that it was those 50 people, and they said कि भाई ये तो बहुत ज़्यादा है. तो they ignored them and cohort 2 के बच्चे अब place हो रहे हैं. And a lot of them are getting placed like this at these offers only. Some of them are okay with even lesser offers. जिनको मतलब support role ये वो they're figuring out everyone. I'm not saying you should aim for anything lesser than 7 LPA even as a fresher. I'm saying कि some people are okay with lesser also. तो that is of course the easiest connect. Like colleges में 100 बच्चे 200 बच्चे ऐसे उठते हैं in Accenture and everything at 4.5 LPA. That's the easiest starting sort of offer. There's nothing bad in that also. There's this guy called Rishabh in Super 30. He started at 2.4, currently makes 18, and is now hopefully will get a bigger offer remotely. But वो ही सबको गाइड करता रहता है कि भाई जो मिल रहा है ले लो. Lot of people in Super 30 के लेंगे ही नहीं, मतलब हर कीरत फिगर आउट कर लेगा. तो फॉर यू गाइज आई वुड आल्सो सजेस्ट, इज ग्रेट कि मतलब देख के अच्छा लगा कि 40% इज ओके विद 70 एलपीए, 80% इज ओके विद 12 एलपीए. ग्रेट एक्सपेक्टेशंस. नाउ there's the second part कि हाँ, of course, make sure you're above a certain metric. Interview ऐसा होना चाहिए. One thing that HR told me is कि these people are much, it's easier to connect these students compared to other colleges and other edtechs. So the good thing is you guys are learning very relevant things. जो बच्चे रेफर हुए हैं even at these 8 LP offers, 10 LP offers, वो वहां जाके बता रहे हैं कि सर सीटीओ को भी नहीं आता इतना, मतलब हम ही जाके सीटीओ को सिखा रहे हैं. तो यू गाइस नो इनफ फॉर श्योर. इनिशियली थोड़ी हम्बल एक्सपेक्टेशंस रख लोगे, एंड बाय हम्बल आई मीन 7 10 12 वुड बी नाइस, एंड यू कैन इवेंचुअली कन्वर्ट, ग्रो 10 डिफरेंट थिंग्स. जो 2.4 एलपीए से अगर 18 एलपीए पे पहुंच गया 2 साल में, तो मे बी द कंपनी स्क्वीजेज यू इनिशियली. एट सम पॉइंट इफ यू आर गुड यूल स्क्वीज देम आउट. तो बस यही 2-minute rant before we start today's session. And in terms of the syllabus, guys, there is of course DSA. Oh, see Daisy, I think I have a few things open here that I should close. um, in terms of skills, as a fresher, what we've done is more than enough. Another 3 weeks, and much more. Maybe some initial parts of DevOps would be nice. So up until Docker. In DevOps, up until Docker is great. In full stack, up until Next.js is great. Even if you talk to a bunch of cohort 2 people, they'll tell you कि week 18 के बाद हमने छोड़ ही दिया था, लग गई नौकरी. A lot of college people were like week 14 तक कर लो, and you have your first project. So no pressure to, I mean, that's the point where you start to become independent in another 3-4 weeks, and start to look out for opportunities, start to build projects. At this point, another 3 weeks, please focus on Prisma, Postgres, maybe Drizzle, and on the DevOps side, we are deploying to VMs, Docker Hub. That's it. Maybe don't even worry about Kubernetes. And बाकी सब Ansible and Terraform IC तो चलो बहुत बात की चीज है, कोई नहीं पूछने वाला. Good to know. Might happen in some interview they ask, but most of the time so they won't ask. So for these numbers, right? This is all you need in full stack and DevOps. बाकी का DSA किस्मत पे जितना पूछ लिया उन्होंने, and then rest of it is your किस्मत. तो 4 more weeks, if you're stuck around until this point, of course, there's always drop off in online cohorts, but still a very healthy number compared to where we started. So for all of you, advice is 4 more weeks, stay at it. Don't skip out on the next 4 weeks, and also build a project for another month, and start to look out. With that, today's NoSQL databases. So you guys can find it on projects.100xapps.com. NoSQL. Sorry, what was that?
I'm not co-host.
Oh, yeah, 1 second. Let's make Akash co-host. Ankur is there you go. Co-host. Akash is co-host. And good to go. Alrighty. These are the slides for today. Let me share them with everyone. Oh, I'm still sending it to Akash directly. Oh, I opened chat. My bad. There we go. These are the slides for today. With that, we'll get into it. Today's NoSQL databases. Dekho, rarely do you use MongoDB. Some organizations do. Most rudimentary organizations do. By rudimentary, I mean a lot of consulting projects. Recently, I was going through this website, Architecture Math on Go. If you've seen it, they're doing very well. It's a JE prep website. You can very easily inspect and see who's using MongoDB, who's not. How? You can go into their API calls and see the ID field. If the ID field there is underscore ID and there is an object ID afterwards, whatever the format of object IDs are, this format right here. So you can tell that they're using MongoDB. So a lot of people do use MongoDB. MongoDB has a lot of benefits. It is horizontally scalable. They came in with a pitch, right? SQL databases, what we're learning today, SQL databases have been around for a while. There is a whole job section जहाँ पे सिर्फ SQL ही करना होता है. There are a lot of data analysts, SQL people that just do SQL. Their job is this. So they've been around for a while. NoSQL came later. NoSQL is much easier to write, which is why people prefer NoSQL as kiddie projects, hackathon projects. For a lot of use cases, NoSQL makes sense also. For example, app.100xsteps.com. A use case like this, it makes a lot of sense to use MongoDB. Our schema I'll talk about what schema is, but our database is very complicated because of this whole folder structure. Okay, there is a folder which might have another folder, which might have another folder, might have a video or a Notion doc. This nested structure is much easier to create in NoSQL databases, which is why people prefer NoSQL databases for ease of development. If you might have heard of Firebase, that is also NoSQL. A lot of companies use Firebase also. GatherTown, a very big company with a lot of users and high compute usage, 200K of bills every month in cloud, were also using Firebase because easy to start with. Problem comes when you scale, especially with Firebase that I'm talking about. So MongoDB is there. Firebase is another popular NoSQL database. Firebase gets very bad at scale for price, for speed, a lot of things. And it's very hard to migrate away from a database. एक बार MongoDB use कर लिया, very hard to go back to an SQL database. So NoSQL databases are great. You will have teething pains as your application grows, which is why everyone prefers SQL. Most projects you will see will use SQL. Some KD projects will use NoSQL. NoSQL we have already done. We have already done MongoDB. We've already done relationships in MongoDB also. We have not yet done aggregations in MongoDB. मैं करा दूंगा. But today, the thing that we're doing, most projects of Code 100x that you see, and other projects also use this. Isme bhi, there are two popular databases. MySQL, you might have heard of it. Postgres is the other one. Postgres is what people prefer. So, would be nice if you're really good at these. MongoDB आता है ठीक है नहीं आता है ठीक है. MySQL आता है ठीक है नहीं आता है ठीक है. Postgres you need to be really good at, and that is what we learn today. We learn about the types of databases. There are various types of databases that exist. Four broad categories. NoSQL databases, we have already seen them. MongoDB is a NoSQL database. Why did they name it NoSQL? Because SQL databases were the first thing that, the popularly used thing for years. So their pitch was NoSQL databases, which basically means they don't use structured query language. NoSQL means no structured query language. What is structured query language? We will come to. But the name itself says that we are different from SQL databases. We have brought a new paradigm in databases. NoSQL databases store data in a schema-less fashion. So here is another term over here, schema. Schema होता है कि what is the structure of your data. Agar this is my MongoDB dashboard, I hope we all understand what this is. We have seen MongoDB Compass. It stores a bunch of cities. तो इसमें I can put any field over here. यहाँ पे अभी name, country, continent and population is present. I can randomly add a new entry over here called city or pin code or GDP. I can add it over here. I will not add it over here. Schema less means कि कुछ भी डाल दो doesn't matter. If I have MongoDB, I don't have a good MongoDB server running locally, so I will not run this experiment. But if you ever open this MongoDB Compass and try to change the shape of data, it will let you do it. In this row, you can add GDP as a field. In this row, you will not add GDP. The schema is different for different rows. This row's schema can have a field called GDP. This row's schema will not have. It will not complain because it is schemaless. It is flexible. आपको जो डालना है डाल दो. This database will not force you कि you have to put a field called GDP or not. आप पे depend करता है. Good example of a NoSQL database is MongoDB. It is schemaless. Harkirat, Mongoose mein there were types, there were models, there were schemas. If you remember, if I open any MongoDB 100x devs cohort 3, any MongoDB project that we have done until now, I think Brainly also has it. By the way, this is the Brainly front end. This is the Brainly backend. So front end ka code alag hai. But if I go to the MongoDB schema here, MongoDB schema. So you might ask, Harkirat, we had defined the schema over here. You are saying MongoDB is schemaless. Here you are defining the schema. You are strictly saying title is this, link is this, tags is this, type is this. So how is MongoDB schemaless? And the answer is MongoDB is still schemaless. Mongoose, the library that we are using, lets us enforce schema at the Node.js level. If this is our Node.js backend, and this is our database, MongoDB, this is still schemaless. यहाँ पे you can open it in a UI like this and add whatever entry you want. If you are editing this directly, you can put any schema in there. But Since we are using mongoose, since यहाँ पे we have defined a schema equal to whatever, mongoose will prevent you to add some extra thing. आप कुछ extra डालने की कोशिश करोगे. If the schema says title and you try to put something like name over there, mongoose will prevent you. mongoose यहां से यहां request नहीं जाने देगा. mongoose will make sure the request doesn't reach the MongoDB database. MongoDB पे अगर पहुंच गई, MongoDB will not complain. This schema is enforced at the Node.js level. यहां पे the blocking would happen if you try to send something extra. MongoDB में you can't enforce schema. It is by definition schemaless. So MongoDB schemaless, Firebase, the other NoSQL database I was talking about, schemaless. Mongoose lets you declare schema and lets you block. Why would you want to use schema, Harkirat? Agar MongoDB is schemaless, then why does Mongoose expect us to define a schema? There are libraries that don't expect you to define schema also. Maybe Mongoose also lets you do it. But this is what I'm coming at. It is a good thing to have defined schema. A well-defined schema can save you a lot of trouble in the future. Why use TypeScript if there is already JavaScript? Because TypeScript lets you enforce some things in your code base. कुछ कुछ जगह पे आपके errors पकड़े जाते हैं if you're using TypeScript. And similarly, having a schema is a very good thing. If your developer गलती से भी tries to put the wrong field over here, title की जगह title 2 he puts, MongoDB will throw an error. Mongoose will throw an error. MongoDB will not. So schemaless, as fancy as it sounds, as flexible as it sounds, as good as it sounds, you should not follow it. Schema is good. Having schema is good. Having structure is good. Having types in your code base is a good thing. So NoSQL databases, great. They have a bunch of benefits. They scale horizontally, which means it's much easier to scale them if you have a lot of data. They're extremely schemaless in behavior. So, you can start your application very quickly. Same is true with JavaScript. Writing JavaScript code is very easy. You can write it, ekdam se start. But TypeScript makes it hard to write, makes your code safe. And similarly, schema makes it hard to write. Thoda teething pains honge initially, but in the long run, it will save you a bunch of headaches. So that's the first type of database. NoSQL. Second type is GraphDB. I won't talk too much about it, but there are many famous databases for things like relationships. If you are on Facebook and you have 50 friends, how do you store this in a database? You can use a NoSQL table or database. You can use an SQL database, but these are meant for such relationships. अगर आपको पता है कि one person is going to be connected to another person, it's a good idea to use a NoSQL database. A graph database. It can answer these queries very, very well. If this person is connected to this person likes this person's post, so on and so forth. When you're dealing with these connections, graph databases make sense. We are not going to learn about graph databases, but graph databases help. They make queries like these much faster. So if you're ever getting a network, social network, and you want, to connect people as friends, a graph database makes a lot of sense there. Neo4j is a famous one. Vector databases, some of you might have heard of them. They're becoming very popular now. If we build the Brainly application end to end, if we add AI to it, then we will have to use vector databases. I'll talk a little bit about them. Happy to talk about them towards the end. But we talked a little bit about the Brainly architecture during the Brainly class. And I talked about this thing called embeddings. The way ChatGPT works is, if you go to ChatGPT and give it any statement, what is 2 plus 2? This text actually gets converted into a vector. Vector kya hota hai? If you might have gone through physics, a vector is something like this. If this is a 2D plane, sorry for the, there you go. This is a 2D plane. This is a vector. Okay, whatever, 5, 7. This is a 2-dimensional vector. Similarly, you can have 3 dimensions, then this can be a 3-dimensional vector. Okay, this represents a point in space. And embeddings are a multi-dimensional space, jahan pe the vector can be really long. It can be, look something like this. And any text that you write in ChatGPT, hi there, actually gets converted into embeddings like these, numbers like these, a vector like this. And you can store these vectors in a vector database. इसका फायदा क्या होता है कि vector databases let you answer a different type of query. One common question you ask in AI is how close are two vectors. यहाँ पे अगर if I'm talking about Donald Trump, and here let's say I'm talking about Elon Musk. So some of these statements of these two people will be very close because they're very closely connected. So their vectors will be really close. अगर इसका vector ये है, तो इसका vector might be this. Some numbers over here will be same, similar, closer. Vector databases let you answer queries like these. कि how far are these two vectors? We'll talk more about it if need be. अगर AI में कभी मतलब बाद में जाएंगे. But vector databases are another popular database. Quadrant is one. I forgot the name. Qdrant. They come in GSOC as well. I'm forgetting the name. They're open source. And they're Superbase introduced a vector database. A lot of people are getting into this market. Hot market right now. Why? Because AI is here. Vector databases. A lot of people are using. If you want to create an end-to-end version of the Brainly app, then also you have to use vector databases. But that's not the class for today. What is the class on today? SQL databases. SQL stands for Structured Query Language. Just like JavaScript is a language, Java is a language, SQL is also, it's a query language. Harkirat, what are other query languages? PromQL is another query language for Prometheus, if you've ever done it, or we will do it eventually as well. So, query language का मतलब होता है, it is a language, you write some syntax that lets you query a database. What is an SQL database? An SQL database is a database you can query via the SQL language, via structured query language. So there are many types of SQL databases, many databases that support queries via such a language. That is what we're going to talk about today. What are SQL databases? Stores data in the format of rows. Data कुछ ऐसे store होता है. There is something called a table, very similar to collections in MongoDB. MongoDB में ये क्या है? This is a collection of cities. What are we calling it? Cities. It has a bunch of documents. Each document being one row over here. Okay. South Korea is a city, or Seoul is a city, Mumbai is a city, Lagos is a city. And similarly, here you store it in form of a table. Table matlab rows and columns basically. Okay. Customer ID is one field over here. First name, last name, phone, and country. And these various rows are various users that you might have. John Doe, this is their number, they're from USA. Robert Luna, this is their number, they're from USA. Very similar to the thing that we've already seen in NoSQL databases. Yahan pe they are called documents. This is document 1 that represents Seoul. Document 2 that represents Mumbai. This is row 1 that says John Doe, row 2 that says Robert Luna, so on and so forth. So stores data in the form of rows. Most full stack applications will use this. Examples of such databases are MySQL and Postgres. Just like NoSQL के examples क्या है? NoSQL के examples हैं MongoDB, Firebase. SQL के examples क्या है? MySQL and Postgres. One of these we will use. Doesn't matter, you can pick either. Postgres is popularly used everywhere. Let's move on to the next slide. Why not NoSQL? क्या NoSQL में कुछ कमी है? Why do we use Rust when JavaScript already exists? Why do we use TypeScript when JavaScript already exists? Some benefits it gives you. You don't get those benefits initially, you get them at scale. But most applications will prepare for scale. Okay, eventually, though, scale is going to come. So from day one, they will over prepare. Okay, हाँ भाई, should we use an SQL database? Should we use a NoSQL database? If you are ever running this exercise, okay, should I use SQL or NoSQL? You should use NoSQL if this is a kiddo project, a hackathon project, a consulting project, jaldi se jo banana hai. It is fine to do it. You know, not a lot of customers are going to come. Use NoSQL. It will give you benefits. You will be much faster in writing code, just like you are much faster in writing JavaScript code compared to TypeScript code. But if you are preparing for scale, if this is a long-term project that you're building, if you are part of a company, then most probably it's a good idea to use SQL. You might have used MongoDB. It is schemaless. Its schemaless properties make it ideal for bootstrapping a project fast. Bootstrapping a project means starting a project jaldi se. Hackathon hai, 2 दिन में submit करना है, use NoSQL. But as your application grows, this property makes it very easy for data to get corrupted. The schemaless property, the fact that it is schemaless, can make sure कि आपका data corrupt हो सकता है. What does corrupted data mean? Something like this. कि यार by mistake, some person logged into the MongoDB Compass GUI and rather than adding balance as a field here, added amount balance. गलती से. MongoDB won't stop them. Schema hasn't been enforced in MongoDB. MongoDB hasn't been told कि यार the field is called balance and not amount balance. So anyone can log in here into the MongoDB Compass console and change this field. यहाँ पे balance has become a string. यहाँ पे balance is a number, but the name is wrong. This is the right field. Balance is a number, and it is called balance here. You can run into these issues very often if you are using NoSQL. Not very often. Like, of course, ये नहीं होना चाहिए. There will be some dumb person by mistake who does it. But the database is not stopping you from doing it. SQL में database will stop you. It will not let you put a string over here. It will not let you change this field. The schema will be strict. You will upfront define the schema. Step one would be कि ये है structure. This is what the schema looks like. And step two would be adding data. पहले आप schema बताओगे, फिर आप data डालोगे. What are the problems here? Can lead to inconsistent database. Can cause runtime errors. Runtime errors मतलब कि आप balance ढूंढ रहे होगे. Your Node.js process will try to read balance. It will get back a string, or it will get undefined because the key over here is wrong. It is too flexible for an app that needs strictness. TypeScript makes your code strict. Rust enforces you to write code even stricter. Rust will make sure if you're ever writing Rust code, you cannot do a bunch of memory errors. You will not write code that has memory leaks. Rust will make your life very hard when you are writing the code, but when the code runs, you can sleep smoothly because you know कि कोई memory errors आ ही नहीं सकते. The compiler is very strict. Similarly, SQL databases are very strict. You will spend a lot of time writing good code. It will force you to write good code. It will force you कि गलती से भी you can't put in a string in here. गलती से भी you can't put an extra field over here. And that will give you incremental benefits in the long run. Short term mein, of course, it is a pain in the ass. Writing schemas, strictly defining schemas, changing schemas as time goes by. What if you want to change this field from balance to account balance? In a NoSQL database, it will happen like this. In an SQL database, you will first have to delete all the balance rows, then add a new row, then migrate old balances to new balances. So it can be a pain, but the pain is worth it if you're using an SQL database. Upsides, you can move very fast in a NoSQL database. Jaldi jaldi code likh sakte ho. That is why people prefer MongoDB. Can change the schema initially, easily. You don't have to do anything to change the schema. Rather than putting things in balance, start to put things in account balance. Add another field over here called account balance in the MongoDB schema. Start to put account balance over there. You're good to go. You might think Mongoose does add strictness to the code base because we have to define a schema. You might think कि यार Mongoose में तो हकीकत we have been defining a strict schema. But as I said, that strictness is present at the Node.js level. That strictness is present over here. It is not present at the database level. You can't tell the database that schema is like this. You can tell the Node.js application the schema is like this. Your Node.js application can block a few things. But in the future, you might create a Java backend that has to talk to, the same MongoDB instance. जरूरी थोड़ी है. You might have multiple microservices. One written in Node.js, one written in Java. अब Java में गलती से if you wrote the schema name string and यहाँ पे गलती से you wrote the schema title string, तो यहाँ से you will start to update the name field. यहाँ से you will start to update the title field. Database will let you do both. Database will not stop you. Versus if you use an SQL database, you will first tell your SQL database, let's say Postgres, यार we have a field called title which is a string. Database को वो पता होगा. So if this guy tries to put name over here, it will get rejected. It will not be able to put name as a field over here. You will start to see runtime errors here, which is good. It is telling you कि name नहीं डाल सकते. So that is why there is strictness in NoSQL. MongoDB, because of Mongoose, MongoDB itself is not strict. Cool. That is why you should not use NoSQL databases. Why should you use SQL databases? One, it does not have any downsides of a NoSQL database. And two, it has a strict schema. If you are ever creating a Node.js backend, यही करेंगे ना हम आज. What are we going to do? We will create a Node.js backend and we will not start MongoDB. We will start Postgres locally. What will we start? We will start Postgres locally or on a server for free, either one of these. You can't start to write Node.js code के postgres.insert some user. सीधा आप ही लिखना शुरू नहीं कर सकते. This is step 2. Step 1 is defining your schema. If you are ever using an SQL database, step 1 is telling the database कि यार you are going to have a table called users. Users table is going to have a name field called string. It is going to have an age field called number. After this is done, after the database is aware of the schema, is when you can start to write your Node.js backend. You can start to call Postgres.insert, Postgres.get, Postgres.update, so on and so forth. So there are a few steps you have to follow. Define the schema, put the schema in, put the data in the database that follows that schema. I cannot do Postgres.insert user, address. The database will reject. Database will be like, यहाँ बताया ही नहीं कि address is a field. So you will write code that follows the schema. Only that code will eventually reach the database. Update the schema as per your app changes and perform migrations. ये तीसरा part है, which is the biggest pain in the ass in SQL databases. Let me show you practically. If you go to CMS, which is one of many open source libraries that we have, you will notice there is a folder called Prisma. We will understand what this is. You will notice there is a folder called migrations. That is wrong. Prisma migrations and this. एक बहुत बड़ा folder है यहाँ पे. And this folder is called migrations. It has a bunch of folders inside. जिसके अंदर some code is written. Some migration.sql is written, which has a bunch of code in there. Create table user, create table code. कुछ तो है. Maintaining these migrations, as you can see, so many folders, is not the hard part, but something you have to do in SQL databases. You don't have to do in NoSQL databases. What is step 3? Update the schema as your app changes and perform migrations. You have created a Postgres database that looks like this. You are writing random simple queries in Node.js. Okay. Users.insert, users.get, something like this. अब let's say you add another field. कोई future में requirement happened. Okay, you have to add address as a field over here. Then what will you do? You will first perform a DB migration. This one is an important term, a database migration. What does migration mean? कि आप database को बताओगे कि भाई update हो गया तू. Now you will also support address as a field. So this is called a database migration. As your application grows, as you add more features, you might need to add more tables. Here we have a users table. And then after 10 days, we realize we're going to pivot to a to-do application. Then you will have a to-do table, which will have, whatever the title of the to-do, which will be a string, and, whether or not it is done, which will be a Boolean. This is called migrations. If you notice, this folder has a timestamp followed by a name. Okay, initially our database looked like this. If you try to inspect this a little bit, you will see, okay, first day when I released this application, I created a users table, I created a course table, I created a user purchases table. Bas. I felt like our application would need just this much. This happened on this timestamp. What is this timestamp? Let's try to see. ये कब की date है? 2023 11 or whatever. 2023 11 19 19th November 2023 is when I made the first migration. And then as application grows, now 2024, maybe we yesterday added something extra. Last week, we added another migration because database बढ़ता रहता है. Database gets more and more complex. Now the database of app.100xapps.com, it doesn't have just 3 tables. It has multiple tables. So maintaining these migrations, how the database is changing over time, is another painful thing you have to do in SQL. Define your schema initially. I did that here for app.100xapps.com in 2023 when it was launched. Put data in the database. We wrote the code. Yahan pe there is a lot of code that puts data in the database. It's Next.js code, so you will not be able to understand it right now. Update the schema as your application changes and perform migrations. That is what happens over the months, over the days. ये सारी migrations हैं. For example, let's open this random one. This one says कि alter table user table को change करो and add a new column called bunny proxy enabled. तो What did I do? Users table mein, I added another field called bunny proxy enabled, which is a boolean. Now, what is bunny? What does this field do is a different question. But I performed migrations as time went by. That is what the third step over here means. So there are four parts when you're creating an SQL database. Running the database, of course, ये तो करना ही है ना. Starting a MongoDB database, running a MongoDB database, starting a Postgres database, running it. Using a library that lets you connect to it. MongoDB may we used Mongoose. Here we will use a different library. Creating a table and defining its schema. This is the important bit, hard bit. We'll do it very soon. Run the queries that actually update the database. ये चारों steps follow करने होते हैं in SQL databases. So let's do step one. Take 5 minutes and try to run a Postgres database. There are very many ways to do it. Cheapest one or easiest one is go to neon.tech. It gives you a free database. So go to neon.tech and log in. Quickly do that. Once you do, you will see a page like this. Create a new project. Give it a name. Let's say we are creating a to-do app today and click on create project. Okay? Do this first. Easiest way to get a Postgres database for today's class. Or there are other ways mentioned over here. You can run it locally on your machine using Docker. You can run it locally on your machine using Windows. I don't know if these steps are audited, may or may not be wrong, right? But easiest is go to neon.tech and get one. Go to neon.tech and get a fresh database. I'll wait for 5 minutes. I am going to start it locally. I have Docker. I also know Docker. Some of you might know it. So you can use Docker to start it locally. This is the command that you run to run it locally using Docker. What is Docker is a different question. But the one easy way to start Postgres, MongoDB, Redis, Kafka locally is by using Docker. That is what I'm going to do. So copy this. I already have Docker.
Can you check the internet speed or the
Is it slow?
Yeah, pretty lagging.
All righty. Time to move a bit. Trying to move closer to the Wi-Fi. Oh, seriously. Righty. All right, Akash, let me know if it still remains bad. Cool.
Fine.
Docker run. This is a command that lets you start Postgres locally. Feel free to start it locally or start it on neon.tech. For those of you who know Docker, I am running Redis locally using Docker. I am running Postgres locally using Docker. What you can do is go to neon.tech, create a new project. When you do, you will reach a page like this. And yahan pe, you will find your Postgres URL. What is this URL? We will see very soon. It is very similar to the MongoDB URL if you remember. The MongoDB URL we use to connect to MongoDB. So copy over this, of course, copy it from here. Don't copy the stars. These stars are the password of your database. So copy this snippet and that's your MongoDB or sorry, Postgres URL. For me, I'm running it locally. So I will have a different Postgres URL. Again, the command that I ran to run it locally looks like this. Docker run a name for my container, an environment variable called Postgres password. I have forced my local Postgres password to be this. You will get your Postgres card password from here, this star that you see over here. Dash D means in detached mode running in the backend. Dash P is something called a port mapping we'll come to. And Postgres is the image that I'm starting. So I have run it locally. मेरी machine पे locally चल रहा है. You may run it locally, may run it on a cloud instance. After you do, you will get a URL that looks like this. This URL has a few parts. Let's understand what those parts are. This is called the connection string. The name itself is giving it away. A way to connect to the database. It starts with a protocol, just like I write over here https colon slash slash projects.netexams.com. We have written PostgreSQL colon slash slash username colon password at the rate of host slash database. This is how you connect to your database. The username of your database, the password of your database. Where is your database hosted? Is it running locally on your machine? Is it local host? Or is it running on some cloud instance? And lastly, the name of the database you want to connect to. So if I look over here, Postgres SQL, username is neondb owner, password is this, whatever is hidden behind it, at the rate of, this is the host name, and the name of the database is neondb. So if you got it from here, you will use this connection string. If you started it locally, it will look something like this. PostgreSQL colon slash slash. Username by default is Postgres. Password, I already gave it an explicit password. I totally forgot what it was. Docker run. The password was this. So my string will look like PostgreSQL colon slash slash. Username by default is Postgres. Password is this. At the rate of, where am I running it? Am I running it on a cloud machine? No, I'm running it locally. So localhost slash colon 5432 भी होगा I think यहाँ पे slash the name of my database, which also is Postgres by default. This is the connection string when you're running it locally. And the connection string when you're running it on Neon looks something like this. Feel free to use either. Ignore all the text that is written over here. This is me from cohort 2 explaining what embeddings are. So we have, hopefully some of us have a connection database. We're already 40 minutes in, so let's do a poll also. But now, given we have a database, let's try to connect to that database and let's try to see, can we run some queries in there? Can we run some SQL queries, structured query languages queries over there? So first, let's do a poll. How are we doing, guys? Are we good to go? समझ आ रहा है अभी तक सब कुछ? SQL databases are slightly better than a NoSQL database. Postgres is one famous NoSQL database. You can go to neon.tech and get yourself one for free abhi ke liye. Of course, at scale, you will have to pay them. We pay them about $100 a month. Initially, you don't have to pay anything. Create a quick project over here. Get your connection string. I have started it locally. I am also happy to use one from here. If you want, I can also do this. Class week, I think it's 17 right now. So I created a new project. This is my Postgres URL. I'm going to copy this. Okay. So I'll also run this. I will also not run it locally. Do we understand this? Let's do a poll. I think this is pretty decent, 88%. So let's move on. We have started a Postgres database. How do I send it queries? Mongo पे कैसे भेजते थे? Using Mongoose. For Mongo also, you have a GUI also, right? You can also open MongoDB Compass and send data over there. One common misconception that people have is if I have started MongoDB Compass and I'm connecting to a database and I'm putting some data over here, वो मेरी machine में डल रहा है. नहीं. This is also sending request to a cloud database. This is one way to connect to a cloud database. Mongoose is another way to connect to a cloud database. And similarly, in Postgres, there are GUIs also. If you want, you can. GUI is graphical user interface, an application. आप application भी start कर सकते हो. PG admin is a famous one. PG admin is a GUI that lets you connect to it. Or PSQL is another popular command. Now you might not have it locally, so don't worry about it. I'll run it on my machine and show you. But PSQL is also a popular CLI, command line interface, that lets you connect your database, run query over there. So let's see how this runs really quickly. You don't have to run it. If you don't have it locally, that's fine. PSQL I have locally. Postgres SQL. It lets you connect to a Postgres database. Abhi when I try to connect, it says कि यार मैं तो connect नहीं कर पा रहा हूँ. Why? Because I haven't given it in the credentials of my database. So let me do that. PSQL -h. मेरा host name क्या है? My host name is, where did neon.tech go? My host name is this. Host name क्या है? The URL where it is hosted, a URL that points to the server. PSQL dash host name is this. Dash database name is NeonDB, I think. Let's see. What was the name of the database? It was NeonDB. Password is this. Username is neondb-owner. So username is neondb underscore owner. This is the command that I'm running. It will not run for you because you might not have PSQL locally, and that is fine. मैं बस दिखा रहा हूँ कि कैसे चलता है. Once I run this command, it asks me for the password. I had already copied the password. Let me paste it. And password कुछ गलत copied था, तो let me copy it again. Copy, paste. And now I am connected to the SQL database. I can send queries over there. One, the first common query you would send is \dt. I don't know what this is called. Something tables, describe tables, I think. This will describe all the tables. कि आपके यहाँ पे कौन से tables exist करते हैं. Do you have a users table? Do you have an address table? We don't have anything right now, which is why it says did not find any relationships. If you weren't able to do it, that is fine. I think you can also go here. Go to neon.tech. Go back to your, database यहाँ पे. And you can explore it from here. Go to overview, go to tables. And you will see there are no tables over here because अभी हमने start ही किया. There are no tables available right now. Same thing I am doing via my command line interface. I am not able to see any tables because अभी कोई table डाला ही नहीं है. So what was step 1? Running the database. This is done. What was step 2? Using a library that lets you connect to it and put data in it. I've sort of used a library, a CLI that lets me connect to it. And hopefully I can also create the schema inside. Step 3, create a table and define its schema. This is step 3 that we have to do. Step 1 we have done, database start ho gaya hai, we see it. Step 2 is done, use a library that lets you put data in it. I am using PSQL. यहाँ पे भी it would have been nice if they had a button to create it. They don't. But यहाँ पे they have something called the SQL editor. So you can go over here, delete everything here, go to the SQL editor. You can run SQL commands here. आप यहाँ पे भी directly कर सकते हो. I can do it locally also because I have PSQL. I have connected to it. You can directly run it here. Either is fine. ठीक है. Step 3 जो है, creating the tables. We have to do that next. कि schema क्या है? We have to describe the schema. I will recap. This is what we were supposed to do. We got a database from neon.tech. Skip step 2 for now. Step 3 is creating a table and defining the schema. वो हमें करना है next. Neon.tech works. Let's try to put a few tables inside. We are using SQL. SQL में you have to define the schema. So let's start to describe the schema of our application. Schema is nothing but a bunch of tables. MongoDB में, if you create a Paytm-like application, you will have a users table and an accounts table. If you create a Brainly application, you will have a users table, a content table, a tags table. That is what we did last week. Same thing we have to do in SQL. We have to define tables. They are called collections over here. They are called tables over here. Okay, given this SQL table, SQL database, it has 0 tables right now. Abhi, if I run the command /describe table, it says did not find any relations. If I go to the Neon console and look at tables, it tells me this is completely empty. There are no tables in here. So we need to create tables. If you remember the CMS migrations folder, what was the first migration I did? पहली चीज मैंने क्या करी थी? Create table user, create table course, create table purchase. This is the standard schema of a course selling application कि ये courses हैं, ये users हैं, And these are the purchases. This person has purchased this course. This person has purchased this course. Same thing we have to do. I can actually copy this and paste it also. This is valid SQL. I can literally copy this and paste it over here. This would work, but we are not creating a course selling application. So let's write it from scratch. We have to describe the tables. Until now, we have a database that we can interact with. The next step is defining the schema of it. SQL stands for Structured Query Language. It is a language which lets you describe what and how to put data in the database. Database में क्या जाएगा, उसका structure क्या है, that you have to describe, and you describe it by using the create table command. SQL, Structured Query Language, just like JavaScript has const var function, SQL has create table, the name of your table, and the fields you have to put into your table. For our course selling application, it looks like this: create table user, ID, email, name. For the application that we might be creating today, create table user, ID, primary, serial, primary key, we'll come to what that is. Username, varchar, unique, not null. ठीक है, कुछ कुछ तो समझ आ रहा है. Password, varchar, not null. Created at, timestamp with time zone, default current timestamp. Slightly complicated. थोड़ा थोड़ा तो समझ आता है. If the schema was like this, कि username string, ID string, password string, it would have been easier. SQL is a little not complicated. It gives you a bunch of things you can do, and that is what we are doing here. Here, username can be a variable character up to the length of 50. It can be as long as 50. It should be unique. It should be not null. We are enforcing this at a database level. हम database को बोल रहे हैं कि यार username की maximum length should be 50. It should be unique. It should be not null. The database knows this. Once the database knows this, if this is our database and we have put this schema inside the database, and now I create a Node.js application that tries to put in this database something like this: okay, users.insert email something, password something. If I try to run this command in my Node.js application, it will not run because username is not null. I have clearly told the database that you will not accept anything where username is null. If my database already has username Harkirat, if I try to reinsert it, database will stop me from reinserting it. This is the benefit of describing the schema upfront. Upfront ही मैंने बोल दिया कि this is what the schema looks like. ऐसा data ही अंदर आएगा. Nothing else is allowed to come into the database. If the username is null, reject this request. If the username already exists in the database, reject this request. That is the benefit of using these unique, not null constructs like these. Timestamp क्या कह रहा है कि timestamp को time zone के साथ store करना and default it to current timestamp. यहाँ पे I have not written not null. I'm like, it can be null, but if the user does not give us the timestamp, तो default it to the current timestamp, whatever the current timestamp on the database is. So this is our slightly complicated schema for users. It is slightly easier over here. Create table user, ID serial not null, email text not null, name text. Simple. Here, we've made it a little more complicated. It is good to know all of these terms. It is good to know what is varchar. Variable character, maximum length can be 50. Varchar, variable character, maximum length can be 255. Text यहाँ पे लिखा मैंने. I'm not using varchar over here. I should use varchar. I'm using text though. Text is कुछ भी length हो सकती है, doesn't matter. There is no limit to how long it can be. So let's quickly understand all the things that are written over here. Create table users. This command initiates the creation of a new table called users. Abhi, I have no tables over here. After I run this command, I will have one table over there. ID serial primary key. The name of the first column is ID. Serial means कि एक के बाद एक बढ़ाना. The ID of the first person will be 1. Second person will be 2, 3, 4. Unless explicitly बंदा बता रहा है आपको. If the person is telling you ID is something, then it's a different thing. But if the user is not telling it to you, Then serially increase it. User ID 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, like that. Primary key, this is something important. The constraint specifies that ID column is the primary key of the table. Primary key kya hoti hai is a very important thing to know. Meaning it will uniquely identify each row. Values in this column must be unique and not null. Primary key should by default be unique also, be not null also. आपने यहाँ primary key लिख दिया. If you have written primary key over here, it will be unique, it will be not null. And you always have to describe a primary key of your tables. Most of the times it is ID only. MongoDB में भी तो ID थी, वो uniquely identify करती थी row को, right? Even in MongoDB, the IDs that we had defined or sometimes would come automatically, uniquely identifies the row. कि इस row की ID ये है, इस row की ID ये है. Two rows can have the same user ID. Two rows can have the same balance. Two rows cannot have the same ID. ID क्या होता है? Identifier. How do you identify this specific row? So, primary key can be composite also. मतलब if you've done SQL in school or whatever college, you might have seen primary key दो जगह भी डाल सकते हो कि ID username pair should be primary key. You might also say हरकिरत, why can't username be primary key? मैं username को primary key बना देता हूँ. That also uniquely identifies the row. That is also unique. That is also not. You can do that. Some people do that. That's a bad idea because people change their usernames. If my username is Harkirat right now, I might change it to something else in the future. ID of a user never changes, which is why usually most tables that you see यहाँ पे ID is the primary key. Constraint user p key is ID. मतलब अलग लिखा हुआ है. There's a different syntax to write this. Constraint user underscore primary key. Name of the constraint. Primary key is ID. This is another way to write it. यहाँ पे notice constraint primary key is user ID course ID. इन दोनों का combination is the primary key. ये जो user purchases row है, for those of you who have already done SQL, you might understand why. कि we have a composite private primary key over here. जिनको नहीं समझ आ रहा है, it is fine. अभी के लिए primary key uniquely identifies the row, and यहाँ पे we have clearly written ID is going to be the primary key. You can write it like this. You can also write it like this. You can define a constraint at the end. Either is fine. Let's say we stick to this. Email varchar unique not null. Email is the name of the field. Variable character can have maximum length of 50. Unique means this row needs to be unique. Multiple rows cannot have the same username or email. Not null, not null, should not be null. Password varchar not null. Why have I not made password unique? Because two people can have the same password. जरूरी थोड़ी कि two people on your application are not allowed to have the same password. My password might be 123 random. Your password might be 123 random. We shouldn't have the same username. We shouldn't have the same email, but we can have same password. So that is why this is not null, or this I have not enforced uniqueness over here. And lastly, created at कब ये row बनी थी. ठीक है. If you have a database right now, try running this command. Try to create a table in your database. ये नहीं करोगे तो और कुछ नहीं होगा. If you have not created the table itself, you can't put database. This isn't MongoDB. MongoDB में ये नहीं करना होता. It automatically creates the table. But here you have to specify what the table looks like explicitly. सबसे पहले ये करना पड़ेगा, यहां जाके बताना पड़ेगा कि यार create a table users which has these 5 fields over here: ID, username, password, email, and created at. Let's run it. Statement executed successfully. Hopefully it ran. Let's try to run it again. Error user already exists. एक ही बार रन कर सकते हो. You can't keep recreating the users table. You can only create it once. बन गया users table. You can go to tables over here and you can see कि a users table has been created. It has 5 fields over here: ID, username, email, password, and created at. We haven't put any data in there. यहां से भी डाल सकते हैं. I can add a new record over here, or we can write it via Node.js. So let's try it from here. Let's say ID is default, which will be 1. Username is Harkirat. Email is harkirat@gmail.com. Password is 123 random. And created at को default ही रहना. तो इसकी एक default value थी. इसकी भी एक default value है. Save changes. The value in username of user while it's not null constrained. Username harkirat@gmail.com. Harkirat, default 1 to 3 random, save. I think I've forgot it was null here. Now it is not. Notice ID is not 1, ID is 2. ID though should have been 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We said ID should be serial. Let's add another row. Raman, Raman, Raman. इनके कुछ फ्रंट एंड में पंगा है. raman@gmail.com. Password default. Save changes. Now the ID is 3. One ID कहाँ गई? Where did the ID 1 go? Let me add another one. Save changes. ID is now 4. अब तो सही चल रहा है. Now let me try to do this. Username null, some email and some password. Save. Null value in username is not defined. What happens in Postgres is this auto increment counter keeps on running even for wrong queries. अभी जो wrong query थी, it tried to create a user with ID 5. वो बना नहीं, but वो counter 5 पे पहुंच गया. तो now if I try to create another user, they will have ID 6. वो 5 वाली ID खाली रह गई. 4 के बाद सीधा 6 came. Because the query that was trying to put the user crashed. But that doesn't mean कि वो counter came back to 4. It incremented to 5. Query crashed, that is fine. And then I have the user 6. That is why ID 5 is not present, ID 1 is not present. ठीक है? I have a database. I can put data in my database from here. I have a table, sorry, and I can put data in my table from here. Question is, how can you do the same from this terminal that I might have? Or if you want to do the same from SQL editor yahan pe, how can you do that? How can I insert data? How can I update data? How can I delete data? So here you have to understand the syntax of SQL. Structured query language has a very simple syntax to write. अगर आपको कुछ data डालना है, there are 4 things you will do. What is a common term? कि we are creating CRUD applications. CRUD क्या होता है? Create, read, update, delete. ये 4 चीजें ही करते हो आप usually with your data, with your database. When you create a CRUD application, people say कि oh you are making simple CRUD applications. What does that mean? You are creating simple applications जिसमें 4 चीजें हो रही हैं सिर्फ. So Kirat, what are non-CRUD applications? You added in-memory database. You add multiple backends talking to each other. You don't have a database only. You're storing data in Redis. 10 different things. That is what a non-CRUD, slightly complicated app is. But most applications are CRUD applications. There is a Node.js backend, let's say. There is a database. And you run one of 4 queries here. You are either creating data or reading data from here or updating data in here or deleting data from here. 4 चीजें ही करते हो तुम usually. You run CRUD applications or CRUD operations on your database. So how can you run these CRUD operations? Pretty simple. If you want to insert, then the syntax looks like this. Insert into the users table, username, email, password. Key values are Harkirat at gmail.com, 1 to 3 random. This is how you insert data in your database. When I am going here and trying to look at the table and putting a row over here manually from the GUI, under the hood an SQL query is only running. Under the hood, a query like this is running on the database that is inserting the data. So let me copy this. Let me go to the SQL editor. Let me paste it over here. I can run it from here. And personally for me, since I connected to it via PSQL, I can also run it from here. Both will work. I will not run it from here for now. I will run it directly from here. Create a new user whose name is again Harkirat, whose email is harkirat2@example.com, and this is the password. ID is default, created at is default. What does it say? Duplicate key value violates unique constraint. Users username key. जो username key है वो already exist करती है. Database prevented you from putting something in there that you can't put. Mongo में you can't describe uniqueness constraints. Here you can. You can say, you might actually be able to do it in Mongo also. But here मैं बता दिया कि भाई ये तो यूनिक होना चाहिए. If you try to put a second entry with the same username, it will prevent you. Now if I try to put it, it will work. If I try to put the same user again, it will tell me कि यार ये username का user तो already exists. So that is how you insert data in a database. You can also write it in a same, in the same row, doesn't matter. Email पे कह रहा है कि email भी unique होना चाहिए. So let me change the email and username. The SQL query runs. Insert statement we understand. Let's do a quick poll. Do we understand how to create a database, create tables in there, insert data in the database? ठीक है, सिंपल लग रहा है तो 92% इज ब्यूटीफुल. तो लेट्स क्विकली गो थ्रू इट. सेकंड क्या होगा? डेटा को अपडेट करेंगे ना. हाउ कैन आई अपडेट द डेटा फ्रॉम हियर? आई कैन गो टू वट एवर टेबल्स. आई कैन क्लिक ऑन वन ऑफ द रोज एंड ट्राई टू एडिट इट. एंड अपडेट हो जाता है. कहीं से कोई बटन है अपडेट करने का? ओ देयर यू गो, सेव वन चेंजेस. And this row has been updated. If I want to do the same via SQL, I will run an update command. Okay, update the users table, set the password to be this new password. Where email is this? harkirat@gmail.com. Something very important is coming. We are going to learn about SQL injection today. That is where we'll stop the class. So if you think this is very easy and you don't know SQL injection, feel free to stick around. If it's very easy, feel free to drop off as well. All right. This will update an entry in the database. अब अगर मैं जाके देखूंगा उस रो का password would be this new password over here. Update users, set password to be this, where email is this. You can make it more complex. Set password to be this, where you email is this thing and username is something. If you want to add more constraints, you can add that. If you want to update multiple entries, you can say update password to be this and whatever username to be something new. So you can make this more composite. You can update multiple things. You can update it based on multiple constraints. Delete, if you ever want to delete a row. Delete from users where ID is 1. Now, if you remember, we don't have any user with ID 1. So let me delete from users where ID is 2. It has deleted that user. If I remove this, it will delete everything from the users table. Let me run it. सारा खाली कर दिया मैंने. Delete from users, deleted all the users. If I go over to the tables, now the users table will be empty. So you should be very careful how you're running this query. This cleaned my database up. Abhi, if I would have been in a prod database in my neon.tech, I would have cleaned one of my prod databases. So delete from users, make sure you have some constraint here. This is, if you have ever seen the video of GitLab going down, that guy did the same thing, right? He deleted the prod database by mistake. He ran this command to delete the complete data in the database. Halfway through, he realized he was connected to the prod database and not the dev database. There's a very famous outage that happened in GitLab a few years ago. A lot of data got lost in that. So, be careful when you're running the delete query. And then, last is reading, which is select star from users. Select all the users, matlab. If I run this, right now we have no users. I'd clean all of them. So I will, of course, not see anything. Let me insert a user in there. And now let me try to select star from users. Matlab, give me all the entries give me all the rows from the user table. ID, username, email, sab chahiye mujhe. I can also say select username, email from users. तो ये मुझे सिर्फ ये 2 rows देगा. It will just return me username and email. But if I say select star from users, it will return me all the rows that exist in the users table. That is what this first thing over here means. This is the table that you want to read from. Are these 4 CRUD operations simple enough? Can we start to create a Node.js application and connect our Node.js application to our database now? We have seen how to do it from here, but rarely do you touch this from here. Your backend talks to your database. So can we see how can we write some Node.js code that lets me run these insert into users, username, values, Skirat. How can we do the same from a Node.js backend? Can we move on to that? Do we understand simple CRUD operations? Can you guys interact with your Neon Tech table? Simple enough. Can we move on, guys? Let's do a quick poll. Are we good to go? Yes. All right, simple enough. Next up comes the important bit for today. How to write it in your Node.js application. This will be simple. What will be hard is avoiding SQL injections. So we'll learn about that today. We'll learn how can you connect your Node.js application to a Postgres table or a Postgres database. What is SQL injection? How do you avoid SQL injection? Very common thing that you will see in a lot of applications, a lot of our applications also. One common attack vector that comes is SQL injection. So let's understand what is SQL injection? How does it happen? If you have a Node.js backend that is connecting to a database. In the end, Postgres exposes a protocol that someone needs to talk to and be able to send these commands. PSQL is one way to send commands. This SQL editor is another way to send commands. To do the same in a Node.js application, you can use one of Postgres clients. What is a MongoDB client? Mongoose is a MongoDB client. What are some Postgres clients? PG is a famous library. If you open this, what does it say? Non-blocking Postgres client for Node.js, pure JavaScript and option native libpq bindings. What does this mean? Okay, it is a Postgres client. It is non-blocking, which means when you're sending a request, it will not block your thread. It will await it just like, async await when you're sending an HTTP request. You don't block the thread. The thread moves on to other things. Whenever the request responds, the thread goes back there. Similarly, it is non-blocking Postgres client. There is pure JavaScript implementation. मतलब पूरा client, how to connect to the client has been written in JavaScript. There is another optional native libpq binding. Libpq is a library which lets you connect to the Postgres table, most of a Postgres database, most probably in C++. Lib XYZ usually means in C++, I could be wrong. But this is probably written in C++ or some other language. वो कह रहा है कि आप JavaScript से उस C++ को भी कॉल कर सकते हो. Or if you want, we have a pure JavaScript implementation as well. We'll be going with the pure JavaScript implementation. So let's start to create a fresh Node.js application, add PG to it, connect to a database. Let's initialize the Node.js application. How do you do that? CD projects / cohort 3 mkdir week 18 आ गया क्या? Week 18 Postgres CD week 18 Postgres npm init -y to initialize a package.json npx tsc -- init to initialize a tsconfig.json. ये 4 steps सिंपल हैं, कई बार कर लिए हैं. Before we do that, I have to do npm install TypeScript. And then I will run npx tsc -- init. To recap, I ran npm init -y. Then I ran npm install TypeScript. Then I ran npx tsc -- init. I created a fresh folder. I ran these 3 commands in it. Please do the same on your side. We'll wait for 30 seconds, then we'll proceed. I hope we understand by now what these 3 commands are doing. Creating a package.json file, creating a tsconfig.json file, creating a package.json, installing TypeScript, creating a tsconfig.json. अगर आपने TypeScript तक किया है, then these 3 commands should be straightforward to you. Wait for 10 more seconds, then we'll proceed. All right, let's open this in Visual Studio Code. And as you can see, I have a package.json, a package log.json, a tsconfig.json, and a node modules folder. Hopefully, I have the steps here as well. I don't. So yeah, one more thing you have to do. I will recap the steps. Step 1, step 2, step 3. Then open this in Visual Studio Code. That is step 4. And then, do you remember the next steps? What did we do in our TypeScript projects? We changed the root dir to be ./src, the root dir to be ./source, the out dir to be ./dist. These are common steps we have been following for all TypeScript projects for until now. So please follow the same. change the root dir to be /source, the out dir to be /dist, and then create a fresh src folder in here and create a index.ts file. ठीक है? Simple enough, nothing too complicated. Initializing a TypeScript project feels complicated. Go to Replit and create a fresh TypeScript project. That will work as well. Now, we have to create an application that connects to a database. We can create a to-do application, an express application, an HTTP server, a WebSocket server. But to avoid all of that complexity, abhi let's just write functions that let you put data in the database. Eventually, we can create an express application, a to-do application, a full stack application, जिसमें database is also there, express is also there. Right now, we will not create a full stack application. We will just create a simple, bunch of functions that let you connect to the database. Install the PG library. npm install pg at types/pg. This will bring the library. This will bring its types. Hopefully we understand this by now. Okay, why do you have to do this second step? We have already discussed in the TypeScript video. It brings the types of this specific library as well. Now, how did we use mongoose? Import mongoose from mongoose. Kuch, const schema equal to something, const user model equal to something. And then I would do user model dot update, user model dot create or insert, dot get, dot delete. This is how we used the mongoose library. Today we are using the PG library. And if you remember mongoose, we also did this mongoose.connect and gave it the MongoDB URL. This we have done many times. We have imported mongoose, connected to mongoose, created the models, and then run commands like delete, insert, update. Today we are using PG. So we'll run import PG from PG. I think you have to import a client. Let's see. Import client from PG. This is a class most probably. Let's see. It is a class. And then you initialize an instance of the class. Just like we do import express from express const app equal to express. This initializes an instance of express. Similarly, const pg client equal to new client will initialize an instance of a Postgres client that will let me run commands like insert, delete, things like these. So let me initialize a new client. What inputs does it expect? It expects either a string, which most probably will be a connection string, or a config that's slightly more complicated. ये type कहाँ defined है? Like this, either a very complicated config or just a string. I think if we just paste the connection string here, it will work. What was my connection string, if you remember? My connection string was, if I go back to my database here, if I go to the dashboard, this was my connection string to connect to my database. You will have your own. Let me copy it. I think this will work. I could be wrong. If we are wrong, we'll fix it. There's another way to, you can pass in an object here also. If you remember the types of the constructor, config can either be a string or it can be a very complex object. I'm assuming the string over here means the connection string, which is, this thing over here. I could be wrong. So if I'm wrong, we can use the object as well. If you look at the slides, I think we're using the object. Okay, you give it the host name separately, the port, the database name, the user, the password. I am just doing the connection string. I think this will work as well. अगर दूसरा करना है तो you can also do const pg client equal to new pg new client. User is this username, neondb owner. Password is this thing right here. Port is most probably 5432. And host is this thing. And database is neondb. So this and this, I think will do the same thing. I could be wrong. This might be wrong. This though is pakka correct. This is how you give the credentials of your database. इसको आपके database के credentials मिल गए, अब ये उससे connect कर सकता है. This also gives the credentials. I think this will work as well. Either way is fine. Let's go with the second one. Initialize the client, and then you have to call pgclient.connect. And this is an asynchronous function. It takes time for you to connect to the database. Database does not exist on my local machine. It exists somewhere in the US. So this will take time. We should await this, something like this. But you can't run await at the top level of your index.js. You can't have await at the top level of your Node.js application. आप ऐसे बाहर नहीं लिख सकते. जहां भी await लिखा है, it should be wrapped inside an async function. So let's create an async function called main, जिसके अंदर I have this await pgclient.connect. पहले तो भाई connect कर ले. Then we will run the commands to insert, delete, update, whatever. But first thing, connect to the database. Then we'll run the commands. ठीक है? To recap, import client from pg, initialize a fresh client, connect to the database, and then start to run Postgres queries. What are the SQL queries that I have to run? I can run client.query select star from users, or client.query create table users. Whatever commands we were running over here in the SQL editor, create a user, insert a user, delete a user, same commands I can send via client.query. So let's try it out. What is our table called? It was called users. So let's try to send select, oh sorry, not this, const response equal to await pgclient.query select star from users. Simple है, कुछ complicated नहीं किया है. This command that I was running from the NeonDB dashboard, कहां से रन कर रहा था? यहां से. Now I am running the same command from my index.ts file. But to be able to do that, I have to give it the credentials of my database. Okay, my database looks like this. I've given the credentials of my database. Now I can do pgclient.query, select star from users, update users, delete users, insert users. Let's log the response. pgclient.connect, get the response, log the response. Simple enough. What is the next step in a TypeScript project? Take 10 seconds or 15 seconds. If you're writing this code on your side, feel free to write it, digest it, 15 seconds, then we'll proceed. Not too much code. We are not writing a PG client from scratch. These folks have written it. We are using it as such. Creating a new client, sending a select star from users query. I can send a update users, a delete users, and insert users, whatever kind of query I want. Log the response over here. Simple enough. To be able to run it, what are the steps? TypeScript project है, JavaScript project तो है नहीं. So to be able to run it, standard practices, go to package.json, and amongst the many scripts that you can add a dev script over here. And what will the dev script do? It will compile your code. tsc-b will convert your TypeScript code into JavaScript code. And मतलब जब ये हो जाए, then run node dist/index.js. That is what this dev command is doing. So if I run npm run dev now, what will happen? This command will run. First tsc-b will run. My TypeScript code will get converted to JavaScript. Then node.dist/index.js will run. What did I say in tsconfig.json? I said outdir is ./dist. JavaScript bundle will reach ./dist. So when I compile my code, when I run this command, a dist/index.js is created. Let's see it in action. If I run tsc-b or npx tsc-b, notice dist/index.js gets created. And if I want to start it, I can run node dist/index.js. I can either do this or I can run npm run dev now, because I've added a dev script over here, which will do the same thing. It will first compile the code, then it will run the code. And notice nothing happens. Why? Because I forgot to call the main function. I have defined the main function. I forgot to call it. So let me call the main function as well. Then this will get called. Then these 2 lines of code will run, or these 3 lines of code will run. Now let's try it out. Notice it takes some time. And then it returns me a very big object. It says connection is insecure. I think I have to add secure true. Let's see the types. SSL true. Because our connection string also here has question mark SSL mode equal to require, I have to add SSL true, or we can do the other thing. If this is complicated, I think this will work. Let's copy the connection string as such, paste it over here as such, and see does it work. Something came. Some very big object came. And amongst that very big object, notice I have a key called rows, जिसमें I have my user information. Okay, there is a user with name ID 12, username this, email this, password this. So if I log response.rows and rerun it, now it will actually return me the rows that came from SQL, which is an array. कि अभी एक ही entry है यहाँ पे. If I go here and go to tables, how many users exist right now? A single user exists right now. But if I add another record and save it, now there are 2 rows here. If I run this again, I see 2 entries returned from the database. So that is how you can run SQL queries from here. Select star from users lets you get the users. Update users set username equal to Harkirat, where ID equal to 12. If I run this command, it will update the database. It will change इस user का username to be Harkirat. Let's see, does that happen? If I save this and rerun it, it returns an empty array, that is fine. But if I refresh this, I will see the username has been updated. So do we understand how to send similar CRUD operations from a Node.js backend by using the PG library? %92 is great. So what is left in creating a full stack application? अब तो ऐसे बनेगी full stack application. Let's try to create a to-do application really quickly. What would step 1 be? Users table तो है. What other table do I need? Create table to do's. इसमें क्या क्या चीजें होंगी? ID, which will be serial primary key, and I don't know, title varchar 50, description varchar 100, and I don't know, done, whether or not this to do is done. Boolean होता है या bool होता है? I think boolean होता है. Boolean. Run it. Think you have to add commas or something. Statement executed successfully. Oh, I named it to dod. It should have been to do. Abhi, I'm not putting a user ID here. We'll come to relationships soon or tomorrow. But simple to do page मैंने बना दिया है. If I go to tables now, I see a users table. I have a to dod table. I have a to do table. So what is left to create a simple to do application? पहली चीज तो है कि टू डू टेबल शुड हैव अ यूजर आईडी फील्ड ऑल्सो कि कौन से यूजर का टू डू है. वील डू दिस व्हेन वी रिलीज रिलेशनशिप्स. वी विल रीच रिलेशनशिप्स वेरी सून. इसके बाद शायद रिलेशनशिप्स ही है, रिलेशनशिप्स एंड ट्रांजैक्शंस. तो 2 स्लाइड बाद है, वील कम देयर. अभी के लिए लेट्स से यूजर आईडी ठीक है नहीं रख रहे हैं, टू डू स्टोर कर रहे हैं सच. How will you create an Express application? You will be simply like, Harkirat, I will do npm install Express at types. You don't have to follow this along. I'm just showing you very quickly. Okay, how does SQL injection happen in the real world? You will create an HTTP server. Express add kar diya. Then you will be like, import Express from Express. Const app equal to Express. ठीक है, simple enough. Then what will you do? Let me pull this out. pg.connect को मैं यहाँ डाल देता हूँ अभी के लिए. Let's not await it. It is fine. It will work for now. Try to guess why it will just work. Let me keep this handy. And what will I do? I will say app dot मान लो अभी के लिए post. What is a good way? हाँ ठीक है, fine. App dot post slash sign up. Something like this. Const username equal to rec dot body dot username. Const password equal to rec dot body dot password. And then you will be like insert into users. Columns क्या क्या हैं users के? There is username, email, password. Values क्या है? ईमेल भी ले लेते हैं यहाँ पे. वैल्यूज वुड बी ऐसे ही तो स्ट्रिंग कंकैटिनेट होगी राइट कि वैल्यूज आर ठीक है ईमेल. अभी थोड़ा कॉम्प्लिकेट होगा तो लेट मी राइट इट इन द अदर सिंटेक्स. होपफुली यू गाइस अंडरस्टैंड दिस टेम्पलेटेड सिंटेक्स बाय नाउ. वैल्यूज ईमेल कॉमा सॉरी यूजर नेम कॉमा ईमेल कॉमा पासवर्ड. थोड़ी कॉम्प्लिकेटेड है, आई विल एक्सप्लेन इट, डोंट वरी. And then you will say whatever rest.json. You have signed up. This is how you will start to create your full stack application. You will add a sign up endpoint where user will give you a username, password, and email. And then you have to construct this very complicated SQL query. You have to construct something that looks like this. Okay, insert into users username, password, email, values, जो भी values है, harkirat@gmail.com or harkirat, something like this. You have to construct this SQL string, this very long string you have to construct inside your code base. तो मैंने कैसे करी कि यार insert into users, username, email, password, values are. अब ये पार्ट थोड़ा कॉम्प्लिकेटेड है कि यहां मैंने क्या किया है. तो व्हाट आई हैव डन इज, आई मीन होपफुली यू अंडरस्टैंड, ये थोड़ा टेम्पलेटेड सिंटेक्स है, ये थोड़ा कॉम्प्लिकेटेड लग रहा है तो लेट मी डू दिस ऑल्सो. कॉन्स ये थोड़ा और कॉम्प्लिकेटेड होगा वैसे. रिस्पॉन्स टू इक्वल टू अवेट. और लेट मी क्रिएट द एसक्यूएल क्वेरी अलग से. कॉन्स्ट एसक्यूएल क्वेरी इक्वल टू, पहला पार्ट तो सेम ही है, दिस दिस तो रिमेन्स कांस्टेंट. अब इसके आगे क्या ऐड करना है आपको कि वैल्यूज आर, पहली वैल्यू विच इज गोइंग टू बी एसक्यूएल क्वेरी प्लस इक्वल टू यूजर नेम, एंड देन comma SQL query plus equal to comma, then SQL query plus equal to email, then again SQL query plus equal to comma plus equal to password plus equal to closing bracket. ये समझ आ रहा है SQL query कैसे कंस्ट्रक्ट करी? Hopefully it's simple enough. I'll do a poll eventually, but this and this do the same thing. One small thing is missing here, which is कि यार you need double quotes around here or single quotes, one of these. You can't have a naked string like this. I think might work, it might not work, most probably will not work. I can't do this. जो भी यूजर ने वैल्यूज दी हैं, I have to put quotes around it. So it will be a little more complicated, I think. ट्राई कर लेते हैं, नहीं चलेगा So I will have to somehow, add quote over here and here, and then quote over here and here, and quote over here and here. So hopefully this is readable only. Let me comment this more complicated SQL query, or let me replace that with this one. Const insert query equal to this, and pg.query insert query. Hopefully this is simple enough to read and कुछ ज़्यादा complicated नहीं तो I'll explain it. But that's a sign up endpoint right there. और कुछ करने की जरूरत नहीं थी. Rather than doing mongoose.insert, I ran an SQL query. Let's see, does it run? App.listen 3000. Let's run it. npm run dev. Let's go to Postman. Let's try to do a localhost :3000 / sign up. Let's try to send it a body. Which has username Harkirat, email harkirat@gmail.com, password 123. Let's see, does it work? Send. फट गया. It says cannot get, needs to be a post endpoint. Let's send a post. Server crashed. Cannot read property of undefined. क्या मिस करा है मैंने? I need to do a app.use express.json. Otherwise, it won't be able to parse the JSON body over here. Let's try it out one more time. Start the backend. Send the request. Taking some time. And then it failed because constraint failed. ये email already exists करता है. Or username already exists. So let me change the username. Let me change the email. Let me send it one more time. You have signed up. Seems like it is working. If I go to my tables, a new user has signed up. Whatever was the credentials that I used to send, or username password that I used to send to sign up, this and this has reached the database. So is that all you need for a full stack application? Are we good to go? सब कुछ सही है. There's one small thing that's missing, which is SQL injection, the thing that I've been talking about. कि ये कोड सही लग रहा होगा आपको. You might think one thing is this is very complicated, so I'm sure some of you are a little hesitant on ये कैसे चल रहा है. So let me quickly explain this again. I'm just creating a very long templated string. कि यार insert into this thing, username, email, password, values is this dynamic username variable will come over here. So this will get replaced with Harkirat. And this dynamic email variable will come over here. This will get replaced with harkirat@gmail.com. And this dynamic password variable will come over here. This will get replaced with this. So finally, string कुछ ऐसी दिखने लग जाएगी. It is just कि जब you have variables that you have to append to a string, this is a slightly cleaner way to write it. ठीक है? Question is, what is the missing thing here? इसमें कमी क्या है? एक कमी तो ये है कि यार the backend crashes. Whenever I send the same username again, तो backend crash कर जाता है, frontend भी यहाँ पे could not get response हो जाता है, backend गिर जाता है. तो for that, तो I can put this inside a try catch. Something like this. And in the catch, I can send message error while signing up. तो ये error तो ठीक हो गया. Send. Now it will tell me error while signing up. If I send it a new username and a fresh username and a fresh email, still says error while signing up. User email key. Okay. Uniqueness check is failing on email again and again. Oh, sorry. Username, email. Oh, sorry, this should be email. That's my bad. Const email should be rec.body.email, not rec.body.password. Now let's try it again. You have signed up. If I try to sign up with the same username again, error while signing up. पहला error तो गया. What is the second problem here? It is SQL injection. What is SQL injection? Name itself is giving it away. SQL injection. You can, ये कोड कहां रन होगा इवेंचुअली? In some browser, right? In some browser, I will be doing axios.post sign up and sending these arguments. So in that browser, I can inspect. Finally, this will be a front end application. You will go to whatever todo.com or जो भी application token getting whatever this is.com, and यहाँ से the request will be going to the backend to sign up. There will be a sign up button here. वहां से request will go to sign up. So the user can inspect it. The user can paste it in Postman and send obnoxious things over here. यार username is an object. वो तो यूजर पे डिपेंड करता है कि यूजर कुछ भी भेज दे आपको. तो they can send you some bad data. You might say here Zod. We have already learned Zod. I will add Zod over here. I will validate that this is a string, this is a string, this is a string, and only then will I let this run. ठीक है. You added Zod, so the user can only give you valid strings or valid username, password, and email. But there is still a problem, an SQL specific problem. Zod though will help you if you have a MongoDB database, a simple Express application, an Express application with no database. But there is an SQL specific problem over here. How many of us do you already know how this can be exploited for an SQL injection? Yes or no? So most people already know. I mean, more like 30% already know. But long story short, a very common attack vector is कि बहुत लोग कोड ऐसे लिखते हैं जैसे ऐसे लिखा हुआ है. They have SQL databases, they have a sign up endpoint, it looks like this. So what I can do over here is password की जगह I can add something like this. Delete star from users. अब मेरे पे स्ट्रिंग तो मैं कुछ भी दे सकता हूं. मैंने अपना पासवर्ड ये दे दिया. Why is that a problem? Let's log the SQL string. Let's not run it. Let's not run the SQL query. Let's log the insert query. And देखते हैं दिखती कैसी है. User sent us a query that looks like this. Password उस पे है भाई. He can write 123 123. He can add a very complex looking string like this. This looks like SQL only. थोड़ा complicated SQL है. Some single quote here, some closing bracket here, semicolon here, and then some more SQL. He's trying to do SQL injection. He's trying to inject his own SQL to our database. How will that happen? Let's see. I have logged the insert query. I have removed the database query for now. Let's not touch the database. Let's run his query. Final query क्या बन गई? Insert into users, username, email, password, values are this thing. Email, password, and an empty string. Semicolon. Delete star from users. Semicolon this thing. This became a more complex SQL query. थोड़ी इनवैलिड क्वेरी है. एंड में थोड़ा ये एक्स्ट्रा कुछ आ गया है. बट उससे दिस होल क्वेरी इफ आई गो हियर टू द एसक्यूएल एडिटर एंड रन इट, क्या करेगी? इट विल फर्स्ट रन दिस क्वेरी. इंसर्ट हो जाएगा कुछ तो. देन रन दिस क्वेरी. इट विल डिलीट ऑल द यूजर्स फ्रॉम माई डेटाबेस. एंड देन देयर इज सम एक्स्ट्रा सिंटैक्स हियर दैट इट विल इग्नोर और थ्रो एन एरर कि ये लाइन रन नहीं हुई. बट ये पूरा का पूरा एज इट इज रन हो जाएगा. ये पूरा का पूरा एज इट इज रन हो जाएगा. And this second command will delete all the users in my database. Did I write the query to delete users in my database? No. It was injected to my backend by this user. The user engineered the SQL syntax in a way कि जो original query थी वो end हो जाए with an empty password, or if he wants he can add some password over here, that is fine. So he engineered the query in a way कि यार पहली query तो बन ही जाए, उसके बाद एक और क्वेरी अपेंड हो जाए सेमीकोलन के बाद, एंड उसके बाद ऑफ कोर्स कुछ एक्स्ट्रा है वो इग्नोर कर दिया उसने. इफ ही वांट्स टू मेक श्योर एवरीथिंग इज वैलिड, ही कैन इंजीनियर इट लाइक दिस. यार ये कर दिया, एंड देन आई विल डू अनदर इंसर्ट इनटू यूजर्स यूजर नेम कॉमा पासवर्ड कॉमा ईमेल वैल्यूज 123 123 कॉमा 123 123 कॉमा 123 123 एंड सिंगल कोट और क्लोजिंग ब्रेसेस तो है ही, तो मैं ये नहीं डालूंगा. That way he can have 3 SQL queries, all that are valid. Let me send this. अब क्या बन गई SQL query? Let's copy it. Let's paste it here. 3 बैक टू बैक SQL queries हो गई. पहली वाली to insert a user, second one to delete all the users, and third one to insert all the users. None of these queries is invalid. कोई एक्स्ट्रा कोट नहीं है, कोई एक्स्ट्रा ब्रैकेट नहीं है, सब कुछ नहीं है. If I run this, पहली query will run to insert the users, second will run to delete all the users, and third will run to do something else. अब ये यूजर नेम ऑफ कोर्स रिपीटेड है, तो ऑफ कोर्स जो भी अटैकर होगा वो यहाँ पे कुछ रिपीटेड ईमेल नहीं भेजेगा. लेट मी रिप्लेस दिस विद सम वैलिड व्हाटएवर ईमेल एंड रन इट. Statement executed successfully. This person was able to delete all the users in my database. This person was able to inject SQL in my database. That is what SQL injection is. If I go to my users table now, सारे users delete हो गए. सिर्फ one user is left. So this is how you can attack people's. नहीं हुए delete सारे users वैसे. Because I think it is delete from users and not delete star from users. Delete from users होगी query, I think. Let's run this. Let's go to the table and notice सारे users हमारे table से delete हो गए. Because the user engineered an SQL prompt that got injected into our database. तो समझ आया सबको SQL injection? Why is it problematic? How we fix it is a different question. But do we understand SQL injection? This is the common way. One person was attacking one of our websites, only he found it. Recently only he shared one with me. Not our website, but like a friend's website. But very common attack vector. और इसमें सब कुछ कर सकते हो. You can read all the database of the other person. You can, सबको समझ आ गया, very good. You can also, insert is one thing. You can also do a, whatever, select from and get all their user data, dump all their user data. बहुत कुछ कर सकते हो, ठीक है. How do you fix it? Fairly simple. This is a very common problem. Everyone knows it. So this is one syntax to write to a database. The other syntax is this. कि यार const insert query equal to this. क्या जो भी यूजर गिवन स्ट्रिंग्स है ना, मैं उनको अपेंड नहीं करूंगा. आई विल नॉट अपेंड एनी यूजर गिवन स्ट्रिंग्स वन आफ्टर द अदर. आई विल से इंसर्ट इनटू यूजर्स, यूजर नेम, ईमेल, पासवर्ड, वैल्यूज, वेरिएबल नंबर 1, वेरिएबल नंबर 2, वेरिएबल नंबर 3. एंड व्हेन आई एम डूइंग pg client dot query, I will put this query over here, comma, I will put an array of values. What is the second thing it expects? Values. कि यार फर्स्ट वेरिएबल इज जो यूजर ने हमें यूजर नेम दिया है, सेकेंड वेरिएबल इज यूजर ने जो हमें पासवर्ड दिया है, थर्ड वेरिएबल इज यूजर ने जो हमें, सॉरी, सेकेंड इज ईमेल, थर्ड इज पासवर्ड. व्हाट हैपेंस हियर इज कि ठीक है, यूजर गेव इज अ वेरी इंजीनियर्ड स्ट्रिंग, बट आई नेवर अपेंडेड दिस स्ट्रिंग टू द ओरिजिनल क्वेरी. ओरिजिनल क्वेरी ऐसी दिखती है. ये क्वेरी एज इट इज विल रीच द पोस्टग्रेस डेटाबेस. Postgres database will get this query and these 3 values. Now, one of these values is highly engineered. It is an SQL in itself, but it isn't appended to the original string. ये अलग से पहुंचेगा डेटाबेस पे, वैल्यूज अलग से पहुंचेगी डेटाबेस पे. डेटाबेस विल अंडरस्टैंड कि अच्छा पासवर्ड लुक्स समथिंग लाइक दिस, और वो एज इट इज पासवर्ड को स्टोर कर देगा. You are not appending the original string, you are not modifying the original query, which is why अब doesn't matter यूजर यहां पे जितना भी SQL लिख ले, it will not get executed. Only this SQL will get executed with these values. Password is SQL, that is fine. It is never executed. It is a value that eventually gets put into the database. Now, if I run this and send this highly engineered query, it says you have signed up. And if I go to my users table and refresh, you will see the user's password is that very highly specialized key. It never ran though. That SQL query never ran. It got stored in plain text in the database. That is how you avoid SQL injections. You very common syntax of sending values alag se. If you ever have a application in production and you see entries like these, मतलब someone is trying to exploit your database and trying to do SQL injection. वो try करते रहते हैं लोग. And if you're inserting it in the database, you will find अच्छा someone was trying to do an SQL injection in my database. That is it. That's all we had for today. Let's see. SQL database is done. Querying is done. PG is done. Creating a simple Node.js application is done. yeah, everything is fine. And this section over here talks about user provided strings, SQL injections, and how do you fix them. And the fix is, can you send values alag se, username, email, password. SQL queries sent alag se. Don't append user given values to the SQL query. It will lead to an injection. All right, cool. That's all we had for today. Hopefully that was clear. To recap, we did types of databases, why no SQL, why not no SQL, why SQL, creating an SQL database in NeonDB, using a library to put more data into it, PSQL, PG, or this console over here. Then we understood creating a tables, how to define the schema, interacting with the database, sending queries from a Node.js application using the PG library, understanding SQL injection, and creating a simple Node.js application, even a full stack application we have created, जहाँ पे बंदा sign up कर पा रहा है. Two more important concepts are left: relationships and joins. Maybe indexes भी मैं कल ही डाल दूंगा. So tomorrow we can do relationships, joins, and indexes, and then we'll move to Prisma either in an offline video or next week. Either is fine by me. With that, we'll open up for chat. Any questions, guys? Why use Postgres over MySQL? What's the difference? They both understand and can interpret SQL queries. थोड़ा सा फर्क होता है in SQL queries that you are sending. Both are implementations of databases which understand SQL. उसके बाद there might be pros and cons. Postgres is just commonly used. I'm sure there are benefits and downsides जो कहीं documented होंगी. Never read through them. But pool connection by NeonDB means warm up. Pool connection by NeonDB means something like connection pooling. I'm assuming is what your question is. It does not mean warm up. It means something else. I'm assuming you are asking what is this pooled connection over here. This is something else. You've done connection pooling in cohort 2. You should know this, Akash. But it's a central pool where you send. If there are multiple connections you're going to have, you connect to a pool which only has 3 connections to your database to avoid too many connections to your main database. That is what a connection pool is. How do we scale SQL databases? That's a great question. They scale vertically, by which I mean you can add more resources to a machine. They do not scale horizontally. There are some SQL databases that claim that they do, but most of them don't scale horizontally unless you shard them. What is sharding is a whole different question. But MongoDB की pitch ये थी कि we scale horizontally. You can add multiple machines in the cluster and you'll scale linearly. अगर आपकी 10 machines आ गया 10 गुना grow कर गए. SQL you can scale vertically, by which I mean you can increase the size of your machine, increase the space that you have, increase the compute that you have. It can use all the threads on your machine. But you can't scale it horizontally unless you shard. What is sharding is a different question. Or there's this master slave architecture in SQL that you can do. You have in most SQL databases, you have more reads than writes. How many times do you write to Neon Tech? Only when you're creating a new database. उसको छोड़ के सब reads हैं. You are just reading from the database. बार कि यार कितनी GB storage है, कितनी GB वो है. That are 90% of the queries. Maybe 10, maybe even lesser are write queries. So you have a master slave architecture where the master is, you have multiple nodes that all, this is the master node where all the writes happen. And since there are so many writes, this isn't overwhelmed too much. Reads बहुत ज़्यादा होते हैं. So you can have a bunch of slave nodes जहां से people can read. So 90% of the queries land on this almost horizontally scalable thing. I wouldn't call this horizontally scalable. I will call this replicated. This data is replicated here, here, and here. And आधी queries यहाँ जा रही हैं, आधी queries यहाँ जा रही हैं, आधी queries यहाँ जा रही हैं. Write queries यहाँ जा रही है. This leads to inconsistencies. If you try to write some data, but it hasn't reached here, other person will read from here, he'll not be able to read it. तो there are distributed acknowledgements कि यार जब आई और सब पे पहुंच गई सिर्फ तभी मुझे acknowledge करना, या फिर कि पहले पे पहुंच गई तो मुझे acknowledge कर देना. So that is one architecture to scale SQL databases. The other one, what did I say? Okay, you can scale your server vertically. You can add more resources, more compute to it. The third one is sharding, which means कि यार ठीक है, this has all the data of India. This is one database जो India के users use कर रहे हैं. Then this is one database of whatever USA that USA people are using. This is a China database. You have multiple servers and India के सारे users यहाँ बात कर रहे हैं, इससे communicate कर रहे हैं. USA के सारे users are putting their data here. China के all users are putting data here. The problem here that comes is that sometimes China people might need India person users. If I have a friend in China, he might want to talk to me. So where will you store the data? So it's very hard to do joins across shards. So when you are sharding, like a common use case of sharding is, okay, for example, harkira.classes.co.in is one person that is on class X. There is another, whatever, Radhika.classics.co.in. She has her own courses. Then there is Raman.classics.co.in. He has his own courses. So this website would never require Raman's data. Radhika's website would never require Harkirat's data. So you can have a separate Harkirat table or database. You can have a separate Raman database. You can have a separate whatever Radhika database. जब भी कोई नया user आ रहा है, you can create separate databases for them. So that there is no single user that has millions of users and millions of courses and millions of purchases. हर किरत के courses and purchases यहाँ हैं, रमन के यहाँ है, राधिका के यहाँ है. That is another way to scale. In this case, Harkirat never needs to worry about Radhika's data. Radhika never needs to worry about this data. So you wouldn't have to ever join across these tables. What is the join? We'll discuss tomorrow. But yeah, that is another way to scale by dividing your application. All right. What is this? Oh, yeah, that apparatus was also able to do, but you're blocked over here. I think it'll work over here. Yeah, there's the same thing we're doing in Harkirat.classes.in also. Like they did not give us an API. We reverse engineered, and this is what most pirates are doing also right now. The problem here is this video ID is sort of linked to your account. The token is linked to your account, and we'll have limits on accounts. कि एक account एक दिन में 10 ही videos play कर सकता है. So if 100 people buy from a pirater, let's say, only 10 people will be able to watch. And one of the person can be my person. So I'll ask him कि भाई ज़्यादा के refresh करता रहे. So he'll go over here and keep on refreshing. You'll run out of your 10 video quota every day. This is how we also added the videos here in app.100xs.com. If you're looking at any of the recent videos that are encrypted, that are also we also reverse engineered their API. They did not give us an API. We reverse engineered it and understood and figure it out and put it over here. So dev. So this is great. I mean, this is a good feat. This is a feat that the Pirates did as well. And, we also did. But again, the problem or the good thing for us is that we can limit. For example, this video is now linked to harkirat96@gmail.com. So if the pirater is able to do this, everyone will be reading through their account. There will be only 50 people who can watch in a day or whatever, 20 videos that can be played in a day. So we can block them that way. But this is as worse as sharing account. So you can't really stop it. Pirater will just share the email of their account in that case, right? Or email password. So this is great. Like this is great that you reverse engineered. This is what the bounty was for. That Suji ended up winning. Integrate this, figure out this reverse engineer this API and integrate it with app.100xs.com. He did that. But yeah, I will not be going to the office today. I'll come tomorrow. How DB connection? Oh yeah, great. Question is how did it work without an await? मैंने await तो यहाँ डाला ही नहीं. Because कितना ही टाइम लेगी, 1 सेकंड लेगी, 2 सेकंड लेगी, उससे ज्यादा क्या लेगा कनेक्ट करने में, इतना ही टाइम लगेगा. When I'm starting this function doesn't get called until I go to postman and click on send. अब मुझे 2 सेकंड 10 सेकंड तो लगे रही है यहाँ होने में. By the time I start and send a request from here, at least 10 seconds pass, 5 seconds pass. तो तब तक तो this will get connected. That is why I did not await it. In my last year, I don't want to focus on DS. Instead, I want to dedicate my time to it. Yeah, it's very hard to tell whether you can get a job of XYZ without looking at your projects. Yeah. I am in last year of engineering and don't want to focus on DSA. Okay, answered that one. The same question again. Okay, Notion Doc 1, Notion Doc 2, Notion Doc 3, Notion Doc 4. Yeah, 1% of care that is like. Repo is the latest update to the front end repo. Haven't done that. Let's see. File, open, recent, Brainly front end. Where are you? Open cohort 3, Brainly dash front end. Git status. Oh, you are right. Git add dot, git commit. Added more files, push. Pushed it. What else? Chat. Notion docs. All right, let's look at them. I have some projects. One, two, three, four. List is long. That is good. Full stack and GitHub. Attract your motion art effects. Turn your cursor into. Oh, huh. This looks pretty good actually. What is it? Oh, it's like this website that you've made that you're selling on Invato, I would assume. कि ये जो backend your है. This is decent. Wow. I would assume you wrote a lot of physics for it, or I don't know, use library, one of the two. But yeah, this is very interesting as to how this would be made. Like, how do you figure out what's the closest vector? Anyways, oh wow, don't hit that. That is not bad at all. Uh, Look at your projects, most of them in JS. Uh, this would be super interesting if this works. A video editor. What is this like? Just a landing page for now? That's also pretty good. Like decent landing page, I would say. Yeah. Uh, uh, Pretty decent landing pages. Almost felt like I'm on Amazon, which is good. Where are your full stack projects? This is great. No red flags, nothing too unobvious that I see is wrong. This should be fine, I think. And yeah, if you want a referral, we can talk also. Cool. Which is a better approach? Second one, acing await is always preferable over dot 10. Doesn't really matter. I mean, it's like very personal choice sort of a question. Some people prefer this, some people prefer this. I prefer this. Uh, like suppose there is a list of contacts and you click on the content you want to send a message, then what happens? Then HTTP request to send the fetch the room chat or create a chat room. After that, please explain how data is can be stored and optimized. Like even small messages like hi, hello. Hmm. All right. Okay, let's look at this one first. You return the token, I would assume, and how are you, this looks fine. This is actually much better than what I did in a few places. Seems like you have a header and wait, client verification. Yeah, this is much better than what I did. I did not know there was a verify client function that you can pass that will, yeah, you know, uh, that can fetch the header. Basically, what you're doing over here, I did over here, and I did not send the token in the header. I used to send it as a query parameter. This is actually better. So I would connect the user to ws://api.chat.com question mark token equal to something. You're passing it in a header, which is much better. And this is perfect. This is how you do distributed authentication between a HTTP and a WebSocket server. For this question, yeah. So that's a great question. This is how I did it in Backpack, which had a similar, very similar architecture to what you're doing. When you there was a chats table. There was a rooms table. Now the first thing is you store all the user chats in a database only. There might be a better way to store chats considering there'll be millions of them. But let's say for now you have a single chats table where you're storing all the chats. So the question there was what the room underscore ID should be. And for me, what I had done was user one ID dash user underscore two underscore ID. This is how I would uniquely identify a room. कि अगर दो लोग चैट कर रहे हैं तो जस्ट सॉर्ट देयर यूजर आईडीज एंड देन यूजर आईडी वन जिसकी छोटी आईडी है डैश यूजर आईडी टू इज द नेम ऑफ द रूम तो ऑल द चैट्स ऑल द पब्स ऑल द सब्सक्रिप्शंस ऑन दैट रूम everyone would subscribe to that specific room, which is if I'm on, if I'm talking to Raman over here, and this is the chat window, um, in the WebSocket server, I am now listening to all the messages that are coming on my ID and dash Raman's ID. Let's say this is it. So, that is the room that I'm listening to on the WebSocket server. That is the room that I'm publishing to on the WebSocket server. The WebSocket server is flowing that to the database slowly. Now, directly WebSocket database में नहीं जाना चाहिए. That would be slightly bad. So you would flow it into some sort of a queue, pull it from there and dump it to the database in bulk. That is how, you would build a chat application. The only weird thing here, complicated thing here is the chats table will become too big. So the good thing there is you can shard the chats table. Chats table is one thing that can easily be sharded. When I'm in talking to my Raman's room, I don't need any information about any other chat of mine. इस पेज पे मुझे सिर्फ इस टेबल से बात करनी है और इस डेटाबेस से बात करनी है. तो आई कैन लेट्स से स्टोर ऑल द कॉन्वर्जेशंस दैट आर ग्रुप कॉन्वर्जेशंस इन अ सेपरेट शार्ड and all the conversations that are one-to-one conversations in a separate shard. Udhar also I can break it down. Okay, the first 2,000 rooms that are created are happening on the first shard. The next 2,000 rooms are happening on the second shard, so on and so forth. That's how you might scale it. Even though a single row, if you have indexes in there, can handle a lot of chats. So as long as the table is indexed on the room ID, you can store millions of chats. And usually when the user comes over here, they don't fetch all of their chats. They fetch their last 20 chats. And if they scroll up, is when you should fetch the next 20 chats. And then if they scroll up more, then you should fetch the next 20 chats, so on and so forth. Can you explain the workflow of a full stack application? Stop contact, click. Oh, I answered that one. Sorry. What is the better approach? Answer that one. Answer that one. Answer that one. No access to this Notion page. Another project I'm assuming is for the same guy, Shaurya. I was making my token to program. When I tried to get my database, we get the image of the token. Your JSON included the Notion look like this. That is, yes, JSON. That's deployed on a CDN looks like this. Mine look like this. Image description symbol, this thing, and your image also seems. Whoa, your image is wrong. Like your image is pointing to this URL. My image is pointing to an actual image. Like this opens the cat.png. Your image opens a web page. Oh no, wait, sorry, my bad. Your image is fine. I don't know what I copied before, but this looks fine. Aliraj told me the format was wrong. He said it might happen that this is the right format. There are multiple metadata standards. Did you try this other format? Let's see, name, symbol, but you're putting image here as well. That is fine. I don't know if you need this. You may or may not need this. In token 2022, even when I created a token with metadata, it was opening in one wallet and not the other. I think it was working in backup, not working in Phantom, one of these two. So have you opened it in both the wallets? Which wallet were you opening it in? I think when I created my token 2022 program, token with metadata, it was working in Backpack, was not working in Phantom. Phantom might not support metadata for token 2022 programs yet, which would be probably hard to believe if they're not doing it, but there's a possibility to do it. This happened for me as well. So can you try that? Can you open your wallet or import your wallet in Backpack and try to see does it work over there? Oh yeah, exactly. So आपका भी Phantom में नहीं दिख रहा है. Can you open the same thing in Backpack and try to see if you see the metadata there? What else? Do that right now and update it in the Notion doc. I'll refresh it. Reese often did monorepo and turbo repo and GraphQL. We never covered GraphQL. We did a bit of it in cohort 1. Turbo repo, happy to do it. I think there are 2 videos in cohort 1. Cohort 2, sorry, which are pretty comprehensive, so we can release those. Cool. Try it in Backpack and tell me if it works or not. I think even in the video, I was opening it in Backpack only. It was not working for me in Phantom. All right, guys, one more round of questions. Notion docs, anything? All right. How to stop inserting the how engineered SQL as database SQL in how to stop inserting these engineered SQL database as database engineered in SQL in database. What is your question? I'm assuming your question is okay, how can you prevent SQL injection? We already saw. Pass them as variables. Pass all the 3 things as variables, and eventually the very engineered SQL query will reach your database as a password. If your question is how can you prevent this also, question is why do you have to? बंदे पे है भाई password जो भी रखे वो. If he wants to keep his password that looks like this, it's fine, let him keep it. Also, you never store passwords like this. You convert them, hash them, and the final thing that will be stored here will be a hash. If they store their username that looks like this, then of course, they want to do it, let them do it. If they want to have a very SQL-like username, good for them. What should be the impressive architecture if some fresher wants to make a chat application with WebSockets? Yeah, great question. Number one, you should scale it. Number two, you should have image, uploads, file uploads, allowing sending PDFs, things like these. Number three, you should have threads. You should have nested threads. Chat page, Zoom, when you do in Q&A, someone can reply to you, someone can reply to them. Tagging is one thing. All of these are added in backpack chat. So these are, you will run into a bunch of walls when you're trying to build tagging, for example. Whenever the tag happens, you need to check that the tag has happened. You need to show that ये user exists करते हैं. Let the user select from the existing users who's to tag. Things like these. Like WhatsApp, you can tag other people, right? How can you do that? Group chats. How can you have dynamic group chats? How can you let people create their own groups? If there is a group that has 50 people, how does the chat message reach those 50 people? So on and so forth. Kafka and Redis, what about it? Do you want to learn it? We will run it. Um, what if attacker don't know my user table? They will guess it. Like most attackers don't. But like most SQL tables, I users table is very common. So you can, there's probably a list of common SQL or common table names that people use. You can run through them. Um, that's done. Notion doc. Should be okay. Answer that. When cohort end? Oh boy, at least 6 more months, unless we cover a lot of things recorded. Webinar.gg. My bad. Sorry, guys. Let's do this really quickly. I need your help. Um, I will mute myself on Zoom and let me create a quick webinar and let's see does it work. Like, is it able to handle scale? We'll do a poll and see. Of course, there's a bunch of polishes that need to get added. Um, all right. Let me share the link with you guys. Now there's a very weird UX here. There's a join button at the top. Please click on that join button and only then will you be able to see me. There should be a join button at the top that you need to click. I'm I'm going to mute myself on Zoom for just Unmute. All right. Thank you guys. Seems like the general feedback was the quality was decent. The quality was good. There was lag though. I don't know what that means. What do you mean by lag? Like it was coming slowly. At least the audio was fine. Was good location for campus. UI was good. Yes. All right. Cool, man. This will save us some money if this works. Video was freezing. It was freezing on the producer side. Like I could see myself freeze while I was producing. So something is wrong, but thankfully it's not WebRTC. It's something else. So that should be fine. Push the GitHub code for today. All right. Let me do that. Am I sharing my screen? I am. File. Um, let's see. Open recent Postgres. Don't save. And let me do a git init. Let me v.git ignore node modules and dist git add dot commit init and go back to GitHub. Under dev cohort 3, create a new repo called week 18. We're at week 18 already. Wow, we're really slow this time. Up tak 1 to 100 had started in cohort 1. Week 18 Postgres. Cool. I have pushed it over here. Sorry.
It's week 79.
What?
It's week 79.
Oh, it's 17. Oh, that's my bad. All right, guys, just figure it out. I think I've named it incorrectly. Why did I say so? Last week also I did wrong, probably, yeah. But yeah, that is all I had now. Oh, sorry, you guys posted a new few Notion docs that I skipped through, so let me read through them. Still the same issue. Then I will have to look at it. The good thing is you can read through Backpack's code and see how are they fetching the metadata. Sorry, let me share my screen again and see what's missing there exactly. Like you can read through. Let me just point you to it. So, Coral Backpack. I think I have a worker that will find all the metadata for. Oh, the backend isn't open source anymore. Well, yeah, just push your code in the GitHub repository. I'll look at it. But long story short, you have to figure out a phantom. कैसे figure out कर रहा है metadata? Do you see it on like SoulScan or something? When you go to your token mint on SoulScan, do you see your token metadata there? And if that's the case, then you know it's some. You either have to use the older standard because wallets only support that for now, or if that's not the case, that means you know what you've done something is wrong. You know we'll figure out what that is. It's Radium plus pump.fun project. Please take a look. Pools plus minting. Please list things that I should make it to a fully fledged website. All right. It's Radium plus pump.fun. So, okay, Radium sounds decent enough. I would assume you use Radium under the hood. Let me create a token. Kirath coin. Kirath. Create token. Connect wallet. I don't know if I have a wallet that has money right now. This has $3. So let's try that out. Something is up. I can't click on the connect wallet button. Oh, connect wallet. Yeah, your connect wallet button isn't working. But after I create a token, can I add liquidity? You can probably create a liquidity pool. This is not pump.fun. Pump.fun is it's probably centralized initially. Initial set of buys that happen until it is listed on Radium. I think it's off chain. So initially you just have to create a backend where people can come and create a token, and you can start to accept payments from people who want to buy it and maintain कि इसको मैं इतना टोकन दूंगा इसको मैं इतना टोकन दूंगा. When the market cap reaches 69K is when you know you create the actual token on chain, release the tokens to the user, and create a liquidity pool on Radium or somewhere. So this looks slightly different from what pump.fun is. But yeah, make it work. I don't think the connect wallet button is working, at least for me. And then I'll try it out. We write TypeScript in ES6, but I am compiling JavaScript code. Correct. That is true. I tried a bunch of things to change the module in tsconfig as well, but the import statement is wrong. How can we fix this? Is it okay? It is fine if the code is in CommonJS. You can try to make it work, or you know, compile it in ES6. But why do you want to do this? Is there a specific reason you want to do this? Like no one looks at the JavaScript code eventually. In fact, the older the better. The older your code is in JavaScript, the more browsers it will work at. A lot of browsers don't yet, let's say, work with ES6. So the more backward compatible your code, the older standard that it uses, the better it is for compatibility. It will work with Internet Explorer. But if you're forcing, doesn't matter. No one looks at the JavaScript code. So even if it is the ugliest and the oldest version of ECMAScript, doesn't matter. It's a good thing. So you help me these two clients. Arey wah. Uh, so my first question is, how did you reach these two clients? Like, how does my retweet help? Like, what happens? Are people looking at my retweets and hiring? Yeah, your US pretty good. Like decentish. I mean, wow, it's like pretty good. Is this like, did you create it? Is this a copy from somewhere, a clone, whatever? Fairly 3D website. I like it. About work. All right. What else do you have? This one's fairly basic. This one's also fairly big. I think you've sent this to me before. What can I change? I mean, I don't know. Build more. It's pretty good actually. I can't see any red flag in terms of whatever the projects that you're building, your UI. I will just look at your GitHub next, which I don't see here. So can you edit this and put your GitHub here? 70 LP is great. Fairly solid expectations or simple expectations.
It is
Um,
there at last, I guess.
GitHub. Oh, there you go. All right. Let's look at Harshvardhan. Most projects are in JS. That's not great. I mean, not most projects. I guess this is decent. Let's read through. Okay. So first thing I do is his portfolio was actually really nice. So did he create it or is it a fork? And I don't know if which one of these is true. Um, Probably a fork. I could be wrong. Maybe
Yeah,
not.
tutorial like.
It's a tutorial. All right. So yeah, that would be a mild yellow flag. Like nothing too complicated. It's just your portfolio. So um, then I would look at this one. First commit has a pipeline that is stuck. Oh, Vercel. Hmm. App auth sign up page. Small things like there should be extra space. You know, right matter. Like just I'm just nitpicking now. Auth from slash app slash components slash auth form. Like it's structured fairly well. No red flags there. Just put like a common lint over there, like standard things like I don't know why there's a space here, which if you put in a lint, it take them away. So decent enough. Yeah, like, if I want to hire desperately, I would talk to you at least, and then I would grill you on a few things here. Okay, what exactly is happening here? What is hook forms? What is React hook forms? Why is it better than I don't know, doing it in house and not using a library like this? And have a conversation with you from there. So I don't see any red flag. GitHub seems fairly active. Project seems fairly decent. Code looks decentish. So yeah, I mean, if you're a fresher and 7 to 10 LP is your expectations, honestly, just send me your email and I can connect you with someone. How will you send me your email? You will send it to 100. Akash just follow through, but like send it to 100x devs Twitter, and we'll go from there. ठीक है. Answered that. Oh, let's look at if you tried it in SoulScan. Yeah, then there's something wrong. Then push your code. How are you creating the token? Where are you putting in the like all the commands that you ran to create the token? Just send them in a gist or something, and then I'll help you debug. Because I know one of these places I saw my token when I was creating using token 1.2. I think it was backpack. I saw it in backpack. I could be wrong. So yeah. Wow, 4 Sol is $1,000 now. Good for people. All right, guys, we'll right here. Any other thing? Any other questions? One last round. Access token, refresh token, diff. I can do a full video on it. Long story short, there's a very common pattern. Okay, there's a problem with JWTs. If your JWTs get leaked, then anyone can access your account. There's no way to revoke JWTs. So what you can do is store JWTs in the database and check if this JWT has been revoked. But the problem there is then you're hitting the database too much. every request you're checking the database, is this JWT revoked? Is this JWT revoked? So middle ground is access and refresh tokens. Okay, refresh tokens are stored in the database. Access tokens aren't. So the user sends you request with access token and refresh token. If their access token is valid right now, which usually is valid for like an hour or something, then you know let them through and don't have to hit the database. But if their access token is not valid, then you hit the database, use the refresh token, create a fresh access token, and return it to them. Why is this good? This is good because if their access token gets leaked, then they only have it for an hour. After an hour, it will become invalid. If the refresh token gets leaked, they can revoke it. It's stored in the database. So it's a middle ground to prevent a bunch of database calls. But I can do a more detailed video on what this is. Why is it used? How is it used? Did you ever feel like giving up on tech? I don't know what else I would do in life if not code. So, so the answer is no. Okay. Citizen the yeah, that happens in most non-startup companies or agencies. They feel sort of stuck. Don't leave a job ever. Like if you want, you can do it with the job as well. So my advice would be you're in a cushy position, 9 LPA, or some money is coming every month. तो साथ साथ में do whatever you're doing. Do not. I would advise against whatever. Leaving your job and then preparing. If you if you can get a better job, you will get a better job with your current job as well. Don't leave it. I'm not using an open source model. I have my own celebrity image generator model. Um, oh, how have you created a celebrity generator model? Like, how are you running it locally? Have you trained it from scratch? Are you using some open source image generation model locally? Can you update this here? And tell me that blackbox.ai has no sign up required. It did like 31 images in a span of 15 minutes. Yeah, I don't know, man. Then they're burning through VC money or I don't know. I mean, same is true with Perplexity, right? They give you whatever they're a GPT wrapper, but they let you run it for free until you want some extra things. So they're probably burning through money from some I don't know VCs or something. Who have other custom model? We should generally talk. If you have this, like I always wanted to make that thumbnail generator thingy, like train the model on my face, and then I can generate thumbnails from it. So how can we reach you? Can you put your Twitter here? Oopsie daisy. Just put your Twitter in the doc, and I'll just reach out to you. I'll follow you so you can message me. Can you put your Twitter here? I also look at your code and try to understand what exactly are you doing and what do you mean by. I mean, even if it's a model that you're running locally, you can still talk to it via HTTP.